Chapter 794. Don't panic, put on a stern face first. God of martial arts. As the human martial warriors shouted, their morale shot up. They startled the sea beasts with their spirit. They needed moral support in this devastating situation. They need mental support, a pillar that could prop up their hope so that they wouldn't drown in despair. When Wang Ting killed the terrifying whale, he gave these people the greatest hope. Even that formidable sea beast was nothing in front of him. What could the other sea beasts do? This was their ray of hope. Everyone was invigorated, and they cheered for him and themselves. The leader of martial arts looked at Wang Ting in satisfaction. He seemed to have found his successor and felt emotional. Wang Ting was back-facing the human martial warriors, so they couldn't see his face. No one knew what his expression was like. They only saw him raising his sword again and throwing another sword attack at the boundless horizon. Boom! A scary sword light gathered and wreaked havoc in the sky. Sea waves tossed and churned. They were even more appalling than the waves made by the giant whale. The entire coastline seemed to be boiling. The seawater fell back into the sea, and all the sea beasts started struggling frantically amidst the powerful waves. They roared in fear. Everyone was flabbergasted when they saw this scene. The sea beasts on land stopped their attack and stared at the water absent-mindedly. Fear started creeping up their hearts. Slash. Suddenly, a soft slash echoed in the water. It wasn't loud, but it entered every human and sea beast's ear clearly. Boom. Sword of Ultima times 1,000 crashing ripples. The terrifying sword glow cut through the sea, forcing the waves to wind back. A water wall was formed. It stretched for over 1,000 meters and was pressing forward into the sea. Countless sword glows danced in the sea waves, chopping numerous sea beasts into pieces. They turned into minced meat and stained the seawater with their blood. The water wall turned red at a visible speed. Blood waves bellowed and rose into the air like an upside-down waterfall. The god of the sea was angry. Many sea beasts were killed by this attack. They were washed to who knew where by the seawater, but no matter what, they would still end up at the bottom of the sea, becoming a fertilizer for this planet. This was the true whale fall. Born in the sea, die in the sea. Gradually, the sea waves subsided, and the 1,000-meter-tall waterfall died down. No sea beasts could be seen within a few thousand meters radius. Silence. Dead silence. The entire Jingmen city was eerily silent. All the sea beasts woke up from their stupor and shuddered in fear. They charged towards the sea and the rivers in unison. They were afraid. They were fearful. They were hopeless. This human was too scary. He was like a devil. One attack and he killed the whale lord. One more attack and he annihilated the entire sea beast tide. How could they fight against this monster? We won. We won. There was a huge uproar when the sea beasts started retreating. The cheers rang through the sky and echoed on the surface of the sea. No words could describe their joy and relief now. Everyone, kill all the sea beast. Wang Ting's cold voice resounded in the city. Yes. Kill. Kill. All the martial warriors replied in unison. Their bellows soared through the sky, and their intense killing intent surged towards the sea beasts scurrying away. The leader of martial arts, Dan Taixian, and the other general stage martial warriors didn't waste any time. They killed the last few lord-level sea beasts immediately. Jin Yuan and Haddock followed Wang Ting closely and arrived at the scene. However, they didn't get the chance to act. Wang Ting solved the crisis alone. Nevertheless, they were amazed when they saw Wang Ting in action. He was more powerful than they had imagined. Although they had guessed about his identity, when they confirmed that he was a martial warrior from Earth, their astonishment didn't subside. Instead, it grew stronger. A martial warrior from this underdeveloped planet managed to reach such a high level in his cultivation without any help. This fellow was a monster. They were dumbstruck and felt more fearful of Wang Ting. The remaining sea beasts posed no threat. They were cleared quickly. But Jingmen City was already in ruins. The survivors sat among the debris in tears. They were covered with blood. Some of them were digging the soil with their bare hands, searching for their partner, family, and friends. Scenes of desolation met the eye on every side. Sadness welled up in his heart. Wang Ting stood in the air and looked at the situation below with a heavy heart. It reminded him of Dong Hai. "I'm sorry I came late." A sigh escaped his mouth. Everyone looked up. The people kneeling on the ground raised their tear-stained faces and stared at the figure in the sky. In everyone's eyes, that figure was as mighty and formidable as a god. "Everyone, my condolences. The dead are gone forever, but we have to move on," Wang Ting sighed again as he spoke. Everyone remained quiet. Then, they stood up. "God of martial arts! God of martial arts!" Sparse voices were heard once again. Gradually, they merged together. At this moment, Wang Ting's position in everyone's heart exceeded that of the leader of martial arts. To them, Wang Ting was the new pillar of support. Many humans started to stand up in the distance and looked at Wang Ting while shouting the nickname. The leader of martial arts had a faint smile on his face. He didn't get angry because someone had taken his position. Instead, he felt relaxed. He was relieved that he could finally put down this huge burden. Dan Taixuan's eyes were glowing. She was probably the happiest person to see Wang Ting reach this level. After all, she had witnessed his growth. She had seen him transform from a cheeky greenhorn into this fine fellow standing right before her. In everyone's heart, Wang Ting's image was high and mighty. He was their hero, the new god of martial arts of his era. He was the epitome of invincibility. On the other hand, Wang Ting, who was the center of attention, felt a little agitated and confused. For some reason, he felt that this wasn't right. This wasn't the result he hoped for. He just wanted to cheer these people up. He had experienced Donghai's sea beasts riot personally, so he understood the pain and sorrow of these people. That was why he comforted them. He didn't want to cause such a scene. He had never thought of being a hero. Being a hero was tiring. You needed to be at your best all the time. It wasn't fun. This wasn't what he desired. Wang Ting regretted speaking too much and causing a misunderstanding among the crowd. What should he do? Was it too late to take back his words? Many thoughts went through Wang Ting's mind, but his expression remained unchanged. "Don't panic, put on a stern face and no one can tell what you're thinking." The leader of martial arts flew over from afar and spoke to him in a grim tone. "Wang Ting, this isn't the only city that suffered a riot. Beast tides are occurring in every part of the country. Beijiang, Nanhai, the various mountain ranges, and primary forests, terrifying beast tides are everywhere. This is an extremely serious disaster." "What?" Wang Ting was astounded. "There are beast tides breaking out all over the country?" "Yes, the whole country is under attack. I'm not sure why these star beasts went crazy and started running out of their territories." The leader of martial arts nodded gravely. 1. Chapter 795, Special Skill Whale Swallow. "Why did this happen?" Wang Ting asked solemnly. "We just received the news too. We have yet to find the reason." The leader of martial arts shook his head. "If my guess is correct, we are not the only country suffering. The other nations might be facing this ordeal too." Wang Ting nodded in deep thought. "No matter what, let's solve the star beast riots in our country first." "Yes." The leader of martial arts nodded grimly. "However, there are too many cities facing this calamity. We might not be able to help all of them at once. By the time we go over, it might be too late. We can only reinforce the areas with the worst star beast tides." Wang Ting contemplated before turning his head. "Jin Yuan, Haddock." "Yes, boss." Jin Yuan and Haddock replied with smiles plastered on their faces. The leader and Dan Taixuan finally noticed these two figures. They immediately thought of aliens when they saw Haddock's tentacles. They were shocked. "They are?" the leader asked. "That's right, they're alien martial warriors. But they're on our side." Wang Ting glanced at the two aliens intently as he spoke. "Boss is right. We have abandoned the candidate's side and joined the Earth's faction. We are honored Earthlings now." Jin Yuan immediately stated his stand without any dignity. "I'm born an Earthling and will die as the Earth's ghost," Haddock added on firmly. The leader of martial arts. Dan Taixuan. These two aliens seemed a little shameless. "All right, Stop fooling around. One of you will head north and the other will go to the west. I don't care what method you use, but you must suppress the riots. I'll give you half an hour. Is it enough? Wang Ting said angrily. The muscles on his face twitched uncontrollably. No problem. Half an hour is enough. Jin Yuan said with ease. A piece of cake. Fatty, let's see who can end it faster, Haddock said. Sure, you said it. The one who loses will give up half his serving of barbecued octopus tonight. Jin Yuan sniggered. He said to Wang Ting, Boss, we'll leave now and meet again half an hour later at the capital of this country. They turned into rays of light and disappeared into the horizon, one heading north and the other west. Their speed was incredible. Planetary stage. Bewilderment flashed past the leader's eyes. His voice was a little hoarse as he exclaimed. These two happy-go-lucky aliens were planetary stage martial warriors. He didn't expect this. Where did Wang Ting find these two planetary stage martial warriors? This was as surprising as Wang Ting becoming a planetary stage martial warrior himself. They were planetary stage martial warriors, not some vegetables in the market. Seriously. The leader of martial arts didn't know what to say. Yes, they're planetary stage martial warriors. With them around, the Star Beast riot will be suppressed quickly, Wang Ting said. It shouldn't be a problem since there are planetary stage martial warriors reinforcing us. The leader nodded in agreement when he remembered how Wang Ting had defeated the Star Beasts. I'll be paying a visit to Beijiang, Wang Ting said. Good. I'll arrange people to take care of the other small Star Beast riots, the leader of martial arts replied. Wang Ting nodded. He didn't waste any time and disappeared into the north. His destination was Beijiang. The leader of martial arts looked at his disappearing back view with a complicated and emotional gaze. I'll leave everything to you, Wang Ting. A figure dashed past the sky, breaking the sound barrier and reaching an impossible speed. He couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Wang Ting flew towards Beijiang at the maximum speed he could for a planetary stage martial warrior. At the same time, he counted his gains. He had to admit that the harvest this time was greater than the previous batch. He had received another round of attribute bubbles. His ice force, lightning force, and poison force had risen recently, but they shot up again. Ice force, 1790020,000, 11 star, lightning force, 1860020,000, 11 star, poison force, 1250035,000, 12 star. Both his ice force and lightning force were still at the 11-star general stage, but they were not far from achieving a breakthrough. His poison force hit the limit and reached the 12-star general stage. In just a few hours, Wang Ting's ability had improved tremendously. The speed of progression was a little appalling. He also gained many wind force attribute bubbles, so his wind force jumped to the 12-star general stage too. Wind force, 85-60-35,000, 12-star, these four forces were getting closer and closer to the 13-star general stage. If he found the relevant planetary stage scriptures in the future, he would be able to raise these four forces to the planetary stage. Everything would be perfect then. Of course, Wang Ting also gained a large number of water force as well as the other four basic element forces attributes. After all, there were sea beasts that possessed the other basic elements. Water force wasn't the only one. The sea beasts also dropped many attribute bubbles containing weird skills. Though they were useless to Wang Ting. There was only one exception, whale swallow. This was a special skill dropped by the whale lord. Wang Ting's eyes lit up as he went through the traits of the skill in his mind. Whale swallow. In essence, this was a special skill that could allow him to swallow large amounts of food or force like a whale. This skill would be of great help in increasing a martial warrior's cultivation speed. Once they used it, they could absorb a large amount of force at once or swallow much food and extract energy from them. In summary, the application of this skill exceeded Wang Teng's expectations. Whale swallow, 265-10,000, 1 star, only 1 star? Wang Teng retracted his gaze from the attributes panel. He realized that all the skills he received came in different ranks. The perfected stage was no longer the highest level. Having ranks meant that a rise in rank would result in a jump in the strength of a skill. This was a piece of good news for Wang Teng. As his ability got stronger, some battle techniques would be useless if they couldn't catch up with his progress. Wang Teng also discovered that these ranks only appeared on the techniques had greater potential. For instance, the space physique and the deep-sea breathing skills had space for improvement, so they were segregated into different ranks. For other normal skills, the perfected stage was the limit. The system divided the skills clearly. Wang Teng could also understand the potential of his skills. The space physique and whale swallow required 10,000 points to advance. On the other hand, deep-sea breathing only needed 1,000 points. This was the difference. Chapter 796. They are just star beasts. Kill them directly. Beijiang. A huge mountain ridge lay horizontally on the vast piece of land like a gigantic dragon that fell from the sky. Its body turned into the boundless mountain ranges linking the east to the west, segregating the land into two parts. Beijiang was situated at the north of this mountain range. The land was covered with snow all year round, and mist floated around the peak of the mountain. It felt like heaven. However, a frightening disaster was happening in this extremely peaceful region. Danger lurked everywhere. The situation was uncertain. Occasional loud roars were heard from the endless mountain ranges, one after another. They seemed to be announcing their right over this patch of land. Phut, these beasts are getting arrogant. There was a steep valley within the mountains that was enveloped with blood. Corpses of humans and star beasts were littered everywhere. It was ghastly. The beast tide had retreated, and the humans were treating the survivors and recovering the corpses of their fellow companions. A military martial warrior heard the roar and raised his head abruptly. He spat in the direction of the sound. The other martial warriors gave the same expression. They felt immense hatred toward the star beasts. The entrance of the valley was heavily guarded. All kinds of heavy weapons were set up, their bores aiming at the valley. Once they discovered any signs of star beasts, they would launch spit fire at them. There was also a tent behind the entrance. The general stage martial warriors guarding Beijiang were all gathered inside. They were staring solemnly at a large map in front of them. This valley is an important gate for the star beasts to enter the human territory. Once they breach this defensive line, the vast piece of land behind us will welcome a massacre, Zhu Xuanwu said grimly as he stood in front of the host seat. After annihilating the Zhonli clan, he was sent to guard Beijiang. There were hordes of star beasts here, and this was the first known dimensional rift linking to the Darkland on Earth. It was an important location. This place required powerful martial warriors like him. Not only that, but he had brought a majority of the Xuanwu troop over too. If not, they wouldn't have been able to withstand the first round of Beast Tide. The general stage martial warriors turned grim when they heard this. This was just the first round of Beast Tide. Their abilities are not the strongest. These bastards are testing us. You can imagine how terrifying the future Beast Tides will be, a 12-star general stage martial warrior said. General Lin is right. We mustn't put down our guards. There's a tough battle waiting for us. Another middle-aged man nodded and agreed. His expression was stern and his back straight. Sporting a general cloak, he was a 12-star general stage martial warrior too. Why did these star beasts suddenly attack us like they have gone crazy? Also, the majority of them seem to have gotten stronger. This has never happened in the past. I can't figure out what happened, a refined-looking 11-star general stage martial warrior spoke up. Do you think it has anything to do with the alien invaders? Someone suggested. It's possible. It's too much of a coincidence. The other people started pondering over this possibility. Some nodded while others went into deep thought. We haven't found the reason. There's no use thinking about it now. Zhu Xuanwu opened his mouth. I'm worried about one thing. Besides star beasts, there's a dimensional rift linking to the Darkland here. If we are forced to move further down the valley, the dimensional rift will make use of this chance to expand. He didn't complete his sentence, but everyone knew what he wanted to express. If the dark apparitions seized the opportunity and broke through the dimensional rift, they would finally be able to land on Earth. That was the worst calamity that could happen. The entire tent turned silent. The Xingwu continent suffered from the invasion of the dark apparitions. Whenever the dark apparitions landed in a city, the people would be plunged into hellish misery and suffering. It was a tragic event. They knew it better than anyone. If this situation occurred on Earth, more than 80% of humans would be killed. Most of the people in the Xingwu continent practiced martial arts, and their foundation was stronger. Hence, they were still able to hold on under the dark apparitions' repeated invasions. They required help from the Earth to resist the dark apparitions. The martial arts era on the Earth had only started recently. Most of the human martial warriors were ordinary people. No matter how strong they weren't the star beasts or the dark apparitions' match. If the dimensional rift expanded, the human race could only move toward extinction. The brutal result appeared in everyone's mind. Their faces turned stern, and cold sweat started dripping down their foreheads. Sigh. At this moment, a strong gale blew in from outside. The green screen used as a makeshift door was blown up. Everyone was caught off guard. They turned to take a look. A figure strode in and said in a loud and clear voice, "They're just star beasts. Kill them directly. What are you afraid of? Who are you?" The expressions on many people's faces changed as they glared at the outsider. Some of these people had been guarding Beijiang for many years. They had never seen this person before. Hence, when they heard him boasting shamelessly, they were infuriated. Wang Ting. Zhu Xuanwu recognized this person. He was elated. What? Wang Ting? That Wang Ting. Hes Wang Ting, the Wang Ting who overpowered the alien martial warrior. Why is he here? After a moment of astonishment, the people regained their senses and stared at the young man in bewilderment. General Zhu, how have you been? Wang Ting smiled and greeted Zhu Xuanwu. Not good at all. My hair is turning white because of the Star Beast riot, Zhu Xuanwu said with a forced smile. Ha ha ha. Wang Ting burst out laughing. You have your moments of helplessness too. It's good that you're here. Zhu Xuanwu didn't mind Wang Ting's teasing. I heard that you've already reached that stage. I think you will be able to handle the star beasts easily, right? Although Zhu Xuanwu was guarding the country's borders, he knew that Wang Ting had reached the planetary stage. He was one of the few stationed martial warriors who knew about this. He was a 13-star general stage martial warrior, so he had the right to know. Besides, he was gifted with the skill of converting force into constellation force and was already on the path to reaching the planetary stage. That stage. Everyone was shocked when they listened to their conversation. They knew what that stage meant. As martial warriors, everyone wanted to break the current bottleneck and ascend to a higher level. However, they were too far away. They hadn't even reached the 13-star general stage, so that stage was just a wild wish. Yet this young man who hadn't reached 20 had reached that stage. If they didn't hear it from Zhu Xuanwu, none of them would dare to believe it. This was utterly unbelievable. It didn't make sense. None at all. What had they been cultivating their entire life? Chapter 797. Wang Ting is still too young. Wang Ting didn't bother about what they were thinking. He nodded at Zhu Xuanwu and said, actually, that stage isn't hard to break through. Don't think too much about it. Silence. Everyone was speechless. Are you sure you're consoling us? Why does it sound so infuriating instead? Zhu Xuanwu felt helpless too. He practiced the conversion skill, so he knew that it wasn't simple. Did this fellow think that everyone was as gifted as him? All right, I won't waste any more time. I came to end the Star Beast riot, Wang Ting declared. The listeners immediately turned serious. Ending the Star Beast riot was the top priority now. Everything else could be pushed back. Let's discuss the future plan. Zhu Xuanwu nodded in agreement. The others started contemplating. It wasn't easy to find a suitable counterattack in this situation. However, Wang Ting exclaimed in surprise. What plans do we need? We can just attack them. Silence. Everyone was stunned. They turned their heads in unplanned unison and stared at Wang Ting in confusion. Why are you looking at me? Wang Ting felt helpless. Did I say anything wrong? I don't have time to waste here. Let's end this battle quickly. I have to take care of the other alien invaders. I'm busy. No one knew what to say. To Wang Teng, this thorny star beast riot could be solved with a wave of his hands. Was something not right? Wang Teng saw their expressions and finally realized that his words had stimulated them. Cough, why don't you continue what you're doing and I will enter the mountains alone to take a look, he coughed awkwardly and said. Silence. It would be better if he hadn't spoken. The martial warriors felt even more ashamed of themselves. Honestly, were they useless? He must be thinking that they would hinder his plans. That was why he wanted to enter the mountains alone. This must be what he was thinking. It must be. Everyone stared at Wang Ting with hidden bitterness. Zhu Xuanwu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He hurriedly spoke up to ease the atmosphere. How about this? Wang Ting and I will enter the mountains to take a look. You guys will guard the camp to ensure its safety and wait for us. The other general stage martial warriors had no objections. They nodded. They were afraid of entering the mountains now. The mountains were filled with dangers. Powerful star beasts were everywhere. They had sent many martial warriors to act as scouts in the past, but none of them came back. They were general stage martial warriors, so staying alive wasn't a problem for them. However, if they entered the mountains, they might have to face an intense battle. It wouldn't give them any benefits. You could say that they felt entering the mountains alone was a bad idea. Wang Teng dared to do it because he was strong enough. Zhu Xuanwu was a 13-star general stage martial warrior, so it wasn't a problem for him either. When Wang Ting suffered a setback, he would naturally come back and follow their plan obediently. He wouldn't act rashly anymore. Since no one had any objections, Zhu Xuanwu and Wang Ting went to prepare themselves. They would enter the mountains without delay. The two of them walked out of the tent, accompanied by the other general stage martial warriors. They arrived at the valley's entrance. The military martial warriors clearing up the scene stopped what they were doing when they saw the general stage martial warriors. They stared at them. Who's that young man? He's walking in front of all the generals. I don't know. I have never seen him before. I know who he is. It's him. Who is it? Tell us quickly. It's Wang Ting. Major General Wang. What? Major General Wang? Why is he here? Low discussions were heard all around them. They were on the battlefield, so the discipline wasn't as strict. No one reprimanded them because of their noise. When Wang Ting walked past the military martial warriors, they dropped everything and saluted. They were extremely respectful towards him. They had already recognized Wang Ting. Amidst their gazes, Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu stopped at the end of the valley. What are they planning to do? Are they going to launch a counterattack? The military martial warriors started guessing. There was anticipation in their eyes. During the previous Star Beast attack, they had relied mainly on defense. It was frustrating. Thus, when they saw the general stage martial warriors taking action, they felt invigorated and excited. However, soon, they realized that only 2 figures rose into the air among all the martial warriors. The rest of them remained on the ground. General Zhu, Major General Wang, they stared at the 2 figures in the sky in astonishment. Everyone, we'll be leaving the camp to you guys. Please ensure that nothing happens to the camp, Zhu Xuanwu said. Don't worry, General Zhu. With us around, nothing will happen, the martial warriors below replied in unison. Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu stopped talking and disappeared into the depths of the mountains. The other general stage martial warriors stood on the spot for some time, staring in the direction Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu had left. They shook their heads. I hope they can come back safely. We can't afford to lose any one of them. Yes, General Zhu is the most powerful martial warrior in the camp. He must be safe. Wang Ting is still too young. Everyone chatted on their way back to the tent. They continued to discuss the future plan. In their hearts, Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu's trip would be futile. On the other side, Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu were now deep in the mountains. They had worked together once, so they were familiar with each other's abilities. There was no need to be doubtful of each other. Besides, after attempting the conversion skill, Zhu Xuanwu could sense that his ability had risen by a huge level. This allowed him to understand how powerful the planetary stage was. Other people might not believe Wang Ting when he said that he could solve the Star Beast problem alone, but he had trust in him. The only worry he had came from his fear of the Star Beast tide. Roar! Just as they were heading deeper, a loud bellow came from below. A giant ape stood up on the ground under them. It was more than 10 feet tall. It leaped up and slapped its large palm at Wang Ting and Zhu Xuanwu. Boom! The air around the hand was compressed due to the force, creating a sonic boom. The commotion created was appalling. The enormous palm pressed down on Wang Ting and Zhu Xuanwu like a mountain. 12-star Lord level. Zhu Xuanwu's expression changed slightly. He didn't think that the first star beast he met would be such a formidable foe. He wasn't afraid of this star beast, but he didn't want to receive this palm forcefully. As a human martial warrior, its strength was enough to hurt his body. Chapter 798, Fire Disaster. Zhu Xuanwu's expression turned grave. He was prepared to dodge the palm. He wasn't worried about Wang Ting. This was just a 12-star Lord-level star beast. How could it hurt a planetary stage martial warrior? However, Wang Ting surprised him. His method was more direct than he had imagined. He pushed his palm out and welcomed the attack of the giant ape head-on. The disparity in the size of the two palms was vast. Boom! The next instant, the palms collided. The weaker and smaller palm managed to stop the enormous palm of the giant ape. That wasn't the end. Crack! The ape's eyes were filled with disbelief. It didn't understand how this fragile and puny little human could possess such a powerful ability. It didn't have the time to think though. A sharp pain came from its arm, and the sound of its bone cracking was loud and clear. It howled in pain uncontrollably. "Why are you screaming?" After the palm attack, Wang Ting vanished and appeared above the ape's head. "Get down." He stomped his feet right on the ape's crown. The giant ape shuddered. It felt a formidable strength pouring down from its head. Its gigantic body went out of control and started plummeting. It felt as if a meteorite had smashed on its head. Boom! The giant ape slammed into the mountain, creating a large tremor on the ground. Numerous trees fell. It was like an earthquake. The noise alerted the star beasts hiding in the mountains. They all bellowed in anger. Zhu Xuanwu felt his heart trembling when he heard the roars. If he was surrounded by all these Lord-level star beasts, he could forget about escaping. Yet Wang Ting was still calm and composed. He didn't seem bothered at all. Zhu Xuanwu suddenly felt inferior. Why was the difference between them so huge? What a large monkey! Wang Ting lamented. He didn't see Zhu Xuanwu's dejected expression. He flew down from the sky and stopped in mid-air to look at the giant ape. "Human, how dare you barge into my territory?" The giant ape bore with the excruciating pain and climbed up from the ground, causing another round of rumble. It raised its head and glared at Wang Ting. "Wow, I'm so afraid." Wang Ting took a step back and patted his chest. The ape. Zhu Xuanwu. His acting was truly exaggerated. Zhu Xuanwu felt the corners of his eyes twitching as he stared at Wang Ting in amazement. As expected of Wang Ting, the ape could tell that Wang Ting was teasing it. It bellowed at the sky. "Everyone, what you are waiting for? Kill this, ah!" The ape's shout suddenly got stuck in its throat. It made a retching sound, and its sentence ended abruptly. Zhu Xuanwu's expression turned strange. What did he see? Just when the ape was shouting with its mouth facing the sky, Wang Ting found a large rock from who knew where and threw it directly into the ape's mouth. As to why this simple attack could succeed, it was simply because the ape's mouth was huge. The ape felt extremely uncomfortable. It opened its mouth and straightened its neck. The large rock was stuck in its throat. It couldn't swallow it or spit it out. It was stuck in the weakest part of its throat, so it could only break it with brute force. Zhu Xuanwu couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he saw its expression. His Adam's apple moved up and down, and he felt as if there was something stuck in his throat. It felt dry and uncomfortable. This was a sinister move. Zhu Xuanwu felt that only Wang Ting could think of such a dirty trick. It suited his style. The star beasts closing in paused in unison. The atmosphere turned strange. This human seemed a little scary. Was it all right for them to charge forward? Wasn't it better to stay at home and have a nice sleep? Why did they have to come out and fight for their lives? Why? Crack tilde crack. Phut. The giant ape finally remembered that he could shatter the rock with force. It moved its throat and spat out the broken pieces of rocks. Roar! It bellowed in anger and shouted at the star beasts around it. Have you forgotten our purpose? Kill this human. The ape's words ignited the ferociousness in the star beasts. They screeched in anger and charged in that direction. Boom! The forest trembled, and the ground shook violently. The commotion was petrifying. Very soon, a sea of star beasts could be seen crashing towards them from the woods below. The entire forest seemed to have turned black from their numbers. Zhu Xuanwu looked down from the sky and swallowed a gulp of his saliva. He said in a hoarse voice, "Wang Teng, you've poked the hornet's nest. Haha, what are you afraid of? It's good that they are here. I wish all the star beasts would come. I can catch them all at once." Wang Teng laughed without any worry. Zhu Xuanwu didn't know what to say. This man had a big heart. He was still thinking of trapping all the star beasts in one go when facing such a frightening beast tide. Was this the confidence of a planetary stage martial warrior? Roar! Kill! Humans, die! The howls of the star beasts merged together, and a ferocious aura gathered into the air. It surged towards Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu. Normal martial warriors would be filled with terror when they saw this scene. Even Zhu Xuanwu, who was a 13-star general stage martial warrior, started to panic. His face turned slightly pale. He wasn't being a coward. Honestly, he was just getting a little nervous. Why don't we go back and discuss the plan first? Zhu Xuanwu gulped silently and asked. Are you afraid? Wang Teng asked with a smile. How is that possible? I never knew what fear feels like, Zhu Xuanwu said confidently. Wang Teng glanced at Zhu Xuanwu, but he didn't expose him. He turned and scanned the star beasts below with a cold expression. Boom! A loud explosion erupted. A terrifying flame burst out of Wang Teng's body. The emerald flame spread out and swept through the sky like a fire dragon. Scorching heat covered heaven and earth. The temperature in the region rose tremendously within a split second. Emerald glazed flame. Ever since Wang Ting advanced to the planetary stage, the power of the divine fires he controlled rose multiple times compared to the past. With a wave of his hand, the flames in the sky merged to form numerous fierce green dragons. The dragons bellowed at the sky. The star beasts stopped in their tracks and looked up. Their eyes were filled with emerald flames. They were dumbstruck. What is this? What a scary flame. The Lord-level star beasts started howling in fright. They were unnerved. Go! An angry shout echoed in the air. The green dragons shot out, and countless emerald flames fell from the sky. This felt like a scene from the end of the world. Chapter 799, Space Distortion Area. This mountain range was an extremely chilly place. It was covered with snow all year round and bred many ice element star beasts. When the rain of emerald flame fell on the ground, a flock of ice vultures opened their beaks and sprayed ice and snow into the sky. In an instant, there seemed to be heavy snowfall. Coldness spread through the air and turned into a gale, aiming straight for the flames. Pant! The snow danced wildly in the sky, wanting to extinguish the emerald flames. However, these ice vultures had underestimated the emerald glazed flame. The instant the snow touched the flames, it melted and evaporated. The ice vultures screeched angrily and circled in the air. Large patches of snow dawned on Earth, turning this place into a world of ice and snow. Naive. Wang Teng sneered. He allowed the snow to fall with an indifferent expression. Boom. Suddenly, the emerald flame exploded and swallowed all the snow and ice. The temperature in this area rose multiple times. Not only that, but the giant dragon formed from the emerald-glazed flame also shot into the air and soared towards the ice vultures. Screech! The ice vultures gave a shrill cry of fear. They flapped their wings frantically and wanted to escape. But after flying for about 10 meters, the emerald flame caught up and swallowed them. Screech! Screech! Screeches of despair resounded in the sky. Within a split second, the green flames disappeared entirely. Pitch-black objects plummeted down the sky. They had truly become burnt bird. The star beasts below were flabbergasted when they saw this scene. Wang Ting squinted. He waved his hand, and the emerald flames swept down again, engulfing numerous star beasts. Roar! Roar! Howl! Cries of fear reverberated in the woods continuously. There was no end to it. The star beasts had no chance of resisting the onslaught of the emerald-glazed flame. They got burned into ashes instantly. The star beasts behind were terrified. They didn't dare to rush forward anymore and started escaping in all directions. Thinking of running away, Wang Tung wouldn't give them a chance to leave. After spending so much effort to lure them out, he must kill to his heart's content. Spiritual power gushed out of his forehead. He controlled the emerald-glazed flame and threw it at the star beasts that were escaping. The star beasts got submerged by the flames one by one. Fortunately, the mountain range was full of rocks and accumulated snow. If not, the entire mountain range might have turned into a sea of fire. Even so, the flames continued burning in the forest. The emerald-glazed flame was a divine fire. It could burn anything that it came in touch with. Nothing could escape its wrath. Even the stones. You could see small stones burning everywhere. Zhu Xuanwu was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. He felt that he was in a dream. Wang Ting used a single flame to destroy the frightening beast tide. The star beasts scurried away miserably. This beast tide was their greatest worry. There were numerous powerful star beasts in every beast tide. The damage and impact of this large and strong group of beasts were terrifying. They weren't some random dogs and cats lying on the street. Yet they were burned to death like ants now. This was unbelievable. Zhu Xuanwu suddenly felt appalled. He had a feeling that he was just here to watch the show. The chief commander of the Xuanwu troop had become a spectator. For a moment, tears of inferiority dripped down Zhu Xuanwu's heart. This was too difficult. It was too difficult for him. Wang Ting didn't know what Zhu Xuanwu was thinking. The army of star beasts had collapsed. He decided to release Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion. Zhu Xuanwu was astounded when he saw these two star beasts. Lord level. They were Lord level star beast. Go and hunt the star beasts. The one who kills the most will receive more rewards at the end, Wang Ting told his two spiritual pets. He was using this chance to train his spiritual pets. He was progressing quickly. If his spiritual pets didn't increase their cultivation speed, they wouldn't be able to catch up with him. Wang Ting didn't expect them to follow his pace, but he hoped that they wouldn't fall too far behind. After all, as his spiritual pets, it wouldn't be presentable if their abilities were too low. The amazement in Zhu Xuanwu's eyes got stronger. Wang Ting was probably the only person who dared to release his spiritual pets at a time like this to train them. Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion were excited. They immediately charged toward the star beasts below and started their crazy massacre. The experiences of a spiritual pet depended on its master. If Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion grew up normally, they would just be ordinary star beasts. However, under his guidance, their ability exceeded other star beasts at the same level and they loved battles. They showed no mercy when they killed other star beasts. Zhu Xuanwu was shocked. He almost bit his own lip. Wang Ting was already a monster, but his spiritual pets were perverts too. Could he give other people some chance? This was a huge stimulation for Zhu Xuanwu. With his cultivation and ability, he wouldn't have had this mentality in the past. Now, he kept promising himself that he would cultivate with utmost effort after he went back. He must raise his strength quickly. He never wanted to experience the frustration of being a spectator again. Under the torture of the emerald-glazed flame, the majority of the star beasts had turned into ashes and floated away with the wind. They disappeared without a trace as if they had never been in this world. The other star beasts knew that death was inevitable, So they kneeled down and started howling in despair in the direction of the mountain range. There was a sky-high snow mountain in that direction. Clouds covered the peak, making it impossible to see it. Roar! All the star beasts started howling as if they were paying their last respect. Their voices merged together and the sound waves shook the mountains. What are they doing? Wang Teng was stunned. He frowned slightly. He activated his spiritual sight and looked at the snow mountain, wishing to see the secret behind their actions. There was a distorted force blocking his spiritual sight. He was unable to see through it. Space distortion. Wang Teng possessed space talent, so he knew right away that this was an obstacle caused by space distortion. It must be extremely powerful since his spiritual sight couldn't even see through it. What's the matter? Zhu Xuanwu also noticed something amiss. He flew beside Wang Teng and asked him, "There's something strange over there." Wang Teng smiled. "My luck is not bad. I made a random choice to come to Beijiang, and I met the big boss." Zhu Xuanwu suddenly thought of something. His expression changed. "Wait, that is where the dimensional rift is." Dimensional rift? I'm right. Wang Teng nodded. He hesitated for a moment before continuing. If that is the dimensional rift that connects to the Darkland, why are the star beasts paying their respects in that direction? Did they throw themselves into the laps of the dark apparitions? Chapter 800. Zhu Xuanwu felt a stab in his heart that star beasts are collaborating with the dark apparitions. Zhu Xuanwu was shocked by Wang Teng's guess. It was absurd. The star beasts had joined forces with the dark apparitions. How could this happen? Powerful star beasts possessed intelligence and were as smart as humans. If humans could cooperate with the dark apparitions, why couldn't they? Zhu Xuanwu wasn't stupid or naive. He knew that the star beasts weren't inflexible. He analyzed it in his heart and felt that there was around a 70% chance of this happening. His expression turned grim. If the star beasts cooperated with the dark apparitions, it would be difficult to handle. It's useless to think too much. Since the star beasts are paying their respect in that direction, let's see if anything will appear to save them, Wang Teng scoffed. He waved his hand, and flames shot out toward the remaining survivors mercilessly. The star beasts screamed in agony and died under the emerald-glazed flame. "Humans, you will die a terrible death. Roar, Beastmaster will take revenge for us. Beastmaster, Beastmaster, Beastmaster. Let me see if this Beastmaster will appear after I kill all these star beasts." The smile on Wang Ting's face grew wider. He didn't plan to hide it and turned even more vicious instead. He started killing the remaining star beasts cruelly. Since they chose to invade, they should be prepared for annihilation. Survival of the fittest was the crux of the martial arts era. This would never change. Star beasts started falling one by one, including powerful Lord-level star beasts. They weren't willing to die just like this, so they continued escaping into the depth of the mountains with the emerald-glazed flame pursuing them relentlessly. However, their efforts were useless. They could only die with regret and bitterness. After the last star beast died, the area turned silent. Only the burning flames and the charred marks on the ground proved that a frightening massacre had taken place here a second ago. Wang Teng released his spiritual power and kept his emerald-glazed flame. Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion also flew back. "Master, I killed 138 star beasts, 133 of them were below Lord level and 5 were at the Lord level," the metal armor flaming scorpion said in a fawning tone. "Not bad," Wang Teng nodded. Little White cawed. It didn't want to lose out. Little White says it killed 145 star beasts. 8 of them were at the Lord level. Wang Teng smiled. "Little Scorpion, it looks like you lost." Wang Teng knew how many star beasts they had killed. He possessed the 18 tasks multitasking skill, so he could split 2 thoughts out to watch over his spiritual pets. That was how he knew their result. "Huh? How is that possible? How can the little crow kill more than me?" the metal armor flaming scorpion said in disbelief. "It's smarter than you. It chose the star beasts I injured, so it was more efficient than you," Wang Ting smiled and replied. "What the hell, you can do that?" The metal armor flaming scorpion knocked its head with its pincers and scolded itself for its stupidity. It couldn't think of such a simple idea. Alright, I'll distribute star cores to you based on the number of Lord-level star beasts you have killed. Little White will get 8 and you'll get 5. Any problem with that? Wang Ting took out a few fire element star cores and distributed them to his spiritual pets. Alright, I lost this time. The metal armor flaming scorpion swallowed his star cores dejectedly. Then, its eyes lit up, and it glanced at Little White. Core. Little White immediately gave it a look of disdain and swallowed its star cores. It didn't give the scorpion a chance to speak. Do you have to guard against me so much? Seriously, the metal armor flaming scorpion muttered. Wang Ting ignored his bickering spiritual pets. His eyes shone brightly. A large number of attribute bubbles were floating in the forest. There were many of them. Get it? He released his spiritual power and collected all the attribute bubbles without any hesitation. Earth Force *150 Ice Force *210 Ice Force *180 blank attribute *165 blank attribute *140 Fire Force *120 Metal Force *300 blank attribute *240 Poison Force *220 Wind Force *310 blank attribute *430. A line of attribute bubbles flew over like sugar-coated haws on a stick. They merged into Wang Ting's body. His body trembled again and again. It never stopped. A large amount of force flowed throughout his meridians. Besides the basic 5 element forces, the other mutated forces rose tremendously too, especially his ice force. It went from the 11-star low-tier general stage to the 13-star high-tier general stage. Ice Force, 1505050,000, 13-star, the Wind Force and Poison Force increased greatly too. They broke through from the 12-star general stage to the 13-star high-tier general stage. Wind Force, 8550,000, 13-star, Poison Force, 112050,000, 13-star, all 3 mutated forces had reached the 13-star level. This advancement was amazing. Lightning Force also jumped from the 11-star low-tier general stage to the 12-star general stage. Lightning Force, 1360035,000, 12-star, Wang Ting suddenly felt that this beast tide wasn't a bad thing. It allowed his cultivation to increase. In the past, he would require much effort and time to reach a similar effect. The only unfortunate thing was, the star beasts didn't possess dark force or light force. Thus, no matter how many star beasts he killed, there was no increase in these 2 attributes. Do I have to use my blank attributes to raise them? Wang Ting mumbled to himself. He glanced at his blank attributes. He had gained many blank attributes this time. On his attributes panel, his tally had reached 138,500. Since the last time he used up all his blank attributes, he had collected more than 100,000 attributes again. What an arduous process. However, his heart started aching when he thought of using up all his blank attributes again. Forget it, let's wait a bit. Dark Force and Light Force might appear. Wang Ting consoled himself. He turned and looked at Zhu Xuanwu only to notice his doubtful expression and inferior aura. He shook his head and started self-reflecting. Should he take better care of the people beside him? He didn't want to be responsible if they did anything stupid because of the stimulation they received. Wang Ting opened his mouth and said, "Brother Zhu, do you want to go back? I plan to take a look up that mountain." Zhu Xuanwu felt a stab in his heart. He took a deep breath and said, "Let me accompany you. I'm familiar with this area, so I might be of some help." He sounded extremely unconfident though. Would he be helpful? Maybe not. But since he had already said it, he couldn't take back his words and admit that he was here just as an audience. He still had his dignity. "Let's go. I want to see what that scaredy cat looks like." Wang Ting didn't hesitate and nodded instantly. He flew towards the snow mountain. Chapter 801. It's You. The snow mountain went all the way into the clouds. There was mist covering the entire peak, so it was impossible to see it clearly. Wang Ting and Zhu Xuanwu turned into rays of light and dashed into the mist. Once they got closer, he felt a distinct space distortion. Be careful. Even though Wang Ting had reached the planetary stage, he was still cautious. He reminded Zhu Xuanwu unconsciously. He had experienced the power of a dimensional rift personally, so he knew how scary it was. Even planetary stage martial warriors couldn't promise that they could get out of a dimensional rift safely. Wang Ting still remembered the ancient god's corpse. Even that powerful presence got killed by space distortions, much less a planetary stage martial warrior like him. Zhu Xuanwu knew the dangers, so he didn't dare to be careless. He nodded hurriedly and followed behind Wang Ting like a shadow. He scanned his surroundings vigilantly to detect any signs of danger. The two of them slowed down and slowly climbed up the peak. They pushed through the thick mist and finally arrived at the top. Tap, tap. When the two of them landed on the peak of the mountain, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. The entire space was pitch black and covered with dense fog. They couldn't see their surroundings clearly. Wang Ting frowned. There was astonishment in his eyes. From the bottom, the peak was shrouded in mist. However, when they stepped into this place, they realized that the top was encased by dark clouds. They were as thick as ink. A few bolts of silver lightning flashed across the dark clouds occasionally. They looked like silver snakes slithering back and forth among the clouds. Zhu Xuanwu was dumbstruck. He said in a hoarse voice, "When I was sent to guard this place, I observed the dimensional rift on this peak. This wasn't the scene I saw." Now, he didn't have to continue his sentence. Anyone could tell that the situation had gotten worse. "A more serious situation has appeared," Wang Ting said calmly with no change in his expression. He scanned the ground and saw many attribute bubbles floating in mid-air. These attribute bubbles were all translucent and black. He knew what they contained. "It's you. Dark Force. It must be you." Wang Ting's eyes lit up. He released his spiritual power and swept the ground. "Get it." Black attribute bubbles flew over to him and merged into Wang Ting's body. Dark Force *80 Dark Force *120 Dark Force *150 Dark Force *130. The attribute bubbles turned into large amounts of Dark Force and floated around Wang Ting's body. They even gave off a splashing sound like the water gurgling into a stream. Within a few seconds, Wang Ting had gained more than 8,000 points of Dark Force. His Dark Force advanced from the 11-star low-tier general stage to the 12-star general stage. Dark Force, 3250 35,000, 12-star, it felt amazing to be able to rise a rank within a split second. Others wouldn't be able to experience this joy. Wang Ting smiled. He was overjoyed. Zhu Xuanwu turned to look at him. He wanted to ask Wang Ting about his plans, but he coincidentally saw the smile on his face. He was stunned. What is this? Why was he giving that sinister smile? Did he get contaminated? Did he get affected by the Dark Force? Numerous possibilities ran wild in Zhu Xuanwu's mind. He stared at Wang Ting vigilantly and took a few steps back. He was prepared to run when needed. After all, Wang Ting was a planetary stage formidable warrior. If he got affected by the Dark Force, he could only run. He didn't want to fight with him. No chance at all. He wouldn't be able to withstand a single slap from him. "What are you doing?" Wang Ting was surprised when he saw Zhu Xuanwu's expression. He didn't know what had happened. He looked like a normal person, but why was he suddenly doing stupid things? "Wang Ting, do you feel uncomfortable?" Zhu Xuanwu asked carefully. "Uncomfortable?" Wang Ting was puzzled. He asked in confusion, "I feel fine. Which part of me looks uncomfortable? Cough, why don't you feel your body again? Is there anything abnormal?" Zhu Xuanwu still didn't dare to get close. This was how a person who got contaminated with Dark Force normally acted. They didn't feel that there was anything wrong with them. Just like how a mentally ill patient would feel that he was normal. Wang Ting was infuriated by his expression. The guy was looking at him as if he was an idiot. His face turned black, and he shouted, "You're the abnormal one. Your entire family is abnormal." Sigh. Zhu Xuanwu heaved a long sigh when he saw the furious Wang Ting. Good, good. He was able to remain normal even when he was angry. This meant that he wasn't contaminated by the Dark Force. He was fine. You gave me a scare. I thought you got contaminated, he said hurriedly after confirming that Wang Teng was all right. I got contaminated? Wang Teng pointed at himself in disbelief. He didn't understand why Zhu Xuanwu felt that way. His dark force was at the 12-star general stage. He was a powerful presence among the dark apparitions. He wouldn't get contaminated or receive a backlash from the dark force. But Zhu Xuanwu wasn't aware of this. Only Wang Teng knew that he would never get contaminated. What are you thinking? I'm stronger than you. If you aren't affected, I won't be either. Wang Teng was speechless. Well, you gave that weird smile just now. In these circumstances, anyone will think too much, Zhu Xuanwu said in a righteous and angry tone. Wang Teng was speechless. It was all because of a smile. Cough, he got dizzy with success just now. Wang Teng felt embarrassed, but his expression didn't change. He kept a stern face and said, "What smile? You must have seen wrong. Why would I give that smile? I was in deep thought all this while." Zhu Xuanwu started to doubt himself. Did he see it wrong? No, that was impossible. As a general stage martial warrior, he wouldn't see wrong. This was impossible. A sly look flashed past Wang Teng's eyes when he saw Zhu Xuanwu getting confused by his lie. The look only lasted for a second though. He coughed softly and said, "Let's go and take a look around. The mist is too thick. We can't see the situation here clearly." "All right." Zhu Xuanwu regained his senses and nodded. He stopped pondering over the question. They didn't separate. Instead, they headed in the same direction and prepared to circle the peak first to detect anything amiss. The visibility was only 3 meters. Wang Teng activated his spiritual sight and scanned his surroundings. Swoosh. At this moment, a soft sound echoed in the mist. It was conspicuous. "Be careful." Wang Teng's expression changed, and he shouted instantly. Chapter 802, Golden Horn Giant Python. Almost simultaneously, Zhu Xuanwu's expression changed. A blade appeared in his hand, and he slashed it into the air within a split second. Swoosh! A thick and heavy blade glow shot out horizontally, cutting the mist into 2. When the mist separated, a pitch-black monster appeared in front of the blade glow. Roar! The monster roared in anger after getting discovered. It charged towards the yellow blade glow and collided with it. Boom! A thunderous roar was heard. The strange beast made a weird sound and got thrown into the mist by the blade glow. However, it shifted its body and disappeared into the fog again. A sharp glint flashed in Wang Teng's eyes. He saw the power ingrained in Zhu Xuanwu's blade attack. There was constellation force in it, so the impact was greater than a normal general stage attack. That was why he managed to force the python back. If not, a 13-star general stage martial warrior might have fallen for its sneak attack. After the strange beast disappeared, Zhu Xuanwu remained grim. "What is this? I felt dark force in it." "It is dark force." Wang Teng nodded. The star beast must have been contaminated by dark force, that's why it can merge into the darkness. "I can't find it." Zhu Xuanwu furrowed his brows as he glanced around him. "There's no need to find them. They will come out themselves." Wang Teng smiled. Zhu Xuanwu was stunned. He caught a detail and exclaimed, "Them? Yes, there's more than one." The instant Wang Teng finished speaking, a soft plop was heard in the air again. "Pitch, you're seeking death." Wang Teng snorted. More than 10 flying daggers shot out of his body even though he wasn't moving. They turned into sharp rays of light and stabbed into the thick fog. Zhu Xuanwu squinted when he saw the sharp rays. Splurt! 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 The instant the rays of light entered the mist, the sound of sharp blades cutting through flesh came from inside. They also heard heavy objects slamming into the ground. Within a few seconds, all noises had disappeared. The sharp rays of light flew back and floated around Wang Teng. They cut through the air gently, dispersing the mist. Zhu Xuanwu swallowed his saliva when he saw the flying daggers. The muscles on his face twitched uncontrollably, and he felt fear creeping up in his heart. Divine Spirit Master. A frightening Divine Spirit Master. Wang Ting was a monster. Not only was his force cultivation at the planetary stage, but he also possessed the rare divine spirit master talent. And he seemed powerful in that field too. Could he give other people some chance? You killed all of them? The question escaped his mouth as he looked at Wang Ting. They're not very strong. They just knew a strange concealing skill, Wang Ting replied casually. He walked into the mist and continued, let's go and see what it is. Zhu Xuanwu was rendered speechless. He had attacked the monster before, so he knew how powerful it was. Hence, he didn't believe whatever Wang Ting said. Wang Ting's understanding of strong was vastly different from a normal person's. He would be an idiot if he believed him. He shook his head and caught up with Wang Ting. After taking a few steps, he saw Wang Ting squatting down and poking the beast with his finger. Zhu Xuanwu walked closer to take a look. He was stunned by what he saw. This was a strange-looking snake. It was covered with pitch-black scales and needle-like thorns. Its head was huge, and it had sharp teeth. It looked horrendous at first glance. Is this the creature? Zhu Xuanwu asked. I have never seen a star beast like this. Its body is full of dark force. Look at this. Wang Ting pointed to the black ice at the side and signaled Zhu Xuanwu. This is ice force. Zhu Xuanwu hesitated before making a guess. That's right, this is the combination of dark force and ice force. It was probably formed by this strange python when it attacked. Wang Ting nodded. He was certain because he had gained many dark force and ice force attribute bubbles. That means Earth's star beasts have been contaminated by the dark force. Zhu Xuanwu frowned. Maybe not. When I went to the Darkland, I saw similar star beasts. They might be star beasts from the Darkland, Wang Ting said. Zhu Xuanwu nodded in deep thought. Whatever it is, it's bad news for us. I wonder if there are other strange snakes or are they coming into our world through the dimensional rift? We need to look at the dimensional rift to be sure. Wang Ting raised his head. Suddenly, he froze. You shouldn't have spoken. Zhu Xuanwu was stunned. Why was Wang Ting scolding him? He saw Wang Ting staring absent-mindedly at the sky, so he raised his head too. His body tensed up. Right above them, a gigantic head was popping out gradually among the dark clouds. A pair of black-brown eyes were staring at them coldly. Did we alert their ancestors? Zhu Xuanwu gulped with difficulty. I think so. Wang Ting nodded. Shall we run? Zhu Xuanwu could sense a terrifying aura from the giant creature. This beast was definitely above the 13 Star Lord level. You can give it a try, Wang Ting gloated. Why don't you do it first? Zhu Xuanwu's face turned black. I'm not afraid of it. Why do I need to run? Wang Ting replied calmly. Silence. Zhu Xuanwu didn't know what to say. Wang Ting's words made sense. At the same time, he felt that he was teasing him. Roar. A giant creature appeared above their heads and gave a frightening bellow. The sound waves surged over like real solid. The dark clouds started churning, and silver bolts of lightning danced wildly. A small part of a large creature was revealed among the black clouds. The star beast was too huge. From the size of its head and the part of the body it had revealed, they could tell that it must be a few hundred meters in length. Its body was mostly hidden among the dark clouds, so they couldn't see it fully. It looked similar to the strange snakes Wang Ting had killed a moment ago. However, it was more hideous and majestic, and it had an extra black horn on its head. There were numerous complicated golden patterns plastered on the black horn. It looked mysterious. Wang Ting activated his spiritual sight and saw a huge ball of force light inside the giant python. It was a special force formed from the merger of dark force and ice force, and it was glaring. If he used the human martial warrior's rank to gauge this ball of light, this creature would be at the planetary stage. Chapter 803, The Adventures with the Netherworld Giant Python. The peak of the snow mountain was enveloped by dark clouds. A terrifying giant python circled within the gloomy clouds. Just a small part of its body was enough to terrify its opponents and make their hearts shudder in fear. It pushed its large head out of the dark clouds and stared down at the two humans below with its chilly gaze. Unexpectedly, one of the humans didn't seem to possess any fear towards it. His expression was extremely calm. This expression isn't right. This isn't right. How could a mere human remain composed in front of me, the netherworld giant python? When did my force of presence drop so low? A tinge of confusion floated in the netherworld giant python's heart. It didn't understand, so it opened its mouth and spoke to Wang Teng, human. Wang Teng was sizing up the giant python and comparing his ability with it. He felt that he could kill his opponent and was wondering how to do it when he suddenly heard the giant python addressing him. It wasn't strange for this star beast to speak. After all, it was extremely powerful, so it must have high intelligence. The weird thing was, it was speaking in Earth's language. This was a little interesting. Was this giant python born on this Earth? Was that why it could speak their language? But when did such a frightening star beast appear on Earth? It didn't make sense. Wang Ting was in deep thought. The giant python got furious when it saw the human ignoring it. Anger welled up in its heart, and its gaze froze over. Human, who gave you the balls to ignore me? An angry bellow came from the giant python's mouth. A powerful force of presence pressed down on him from the sky. Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu were hit directly. The force pushed against their bodies. Zhu Xuanwu's face turned slightly pale. He took a step back uncontrollably and was flabbergasted. What a terrifying aura. He knew that this giant python was formidable, but he didn't expect just its aura to be so suffocating. It was incredible. Why are you shouting? My eardrums are itching from the vibration. Wang Teng regained his senses and said in a contemptuous tone. He dug his ear with his finger. Silence. Zhu Xuanwu looked at Wang Teng helplessly. He felt that this fellow's focus point was a little off. Huh! The netherworld giant python was astounded. This human didn't get affected by its presence. Looks like his ability is not bad. No wonder he could maintain his composure. So this is his confidence. When Wang Ting was hiding his ability, he looked ordinary on the surface. Even the netherworld giant python couldn't see his true power. Suddenly, disdain and mockery appeared in its eyes. The humans on Earth didn't have any legacies, so they could only struggle at the general stage. No matter how strong this human was, he could only be at the general stage. A general stage human martial warrior was as weak as an ant in front of it. The confidence this human thought he could rely on would be easily shattered. This was its confidence as an emperor-level star beast. For star beasts, the emperor level was similar to the planetary stage. The netherworld giant python suddenly recalled the hardships it went through in its life. It started to shed tears of sorrow. In the past, it was still a naive and innocent little snake playing happily in the valley. After it got tired of playing, it would go home to find its mother. Life was mundane but joyful. However, it didn't know that it was a little snake that was meant to become a protagonist. One day, it climbed up this snow mountain out of curiosity and noticed an interesting little crack. It swore that it only used its tail to tap it cautiously because it found it interesting and wanted to play with it. It was just a light tap. It never thought of entering the crack. However, the situation went beyond its expectations. A powerful suction force came out of the little crack and sucked it in. That was what happened. It wasn't its fault. The force was so strong that it got sucked right in. The little snake fainted after it entered the crack. When it woke up, it realized that it was in a strange place. The surroundings were pitch black. The sky was dark and looked terrifying. It wanted to go back home to find its mother, but it couldn't find the small crack anymore. It had no choice but to roam around this strange world. However, there were many frightening huge beasts here. They were malicious and wanted to eat it. Once they spotted it, they would pounce on it like hungry beggars. It was so scared that it scurried away in fear. However, it was destined to be a protagonist. It managed to escape every time and remained alive. Finally, one day, it was chased by a terrifying large beast to a cliff. It had nowhere to run, so it could only jump down. At that moment, its eyes were filled with tears of regret. Mother, I should have listened to you. I shouldn't have run around. I shouldn't have touched that little crack. Mother, if there's another lifetime, I promise I will be an obedient child. It closed its eyes and waited for a round of excruciating pain before it left this hellish world. But things weren't as simple as it thought. It managed to survive. It got tangled into some vines and dangled in midair. Come on, it was a snake. Vines couldn't trap it. It crawled out slowly from the vines and slid down the cliff. It was only around 10 meters away from the bottom. There was a deep pool right below the cliff. It seemed bottomless, and it was giving off a bone-chilling cold. The little snake was born to love the cold. When it saw the ice pool, the injuries on its body seemed to hurt less, and the uneasiness in its heart disappeared. It seemed to have found its home. It hurriedly dragged its injured body and wriggled towards the pool with all its energy. Plonk! It finally slithered into the pool. The ice-cold water might be lethal to other creatures, but to the little snake, it was the perfect tonic. It closed its eyes comfortably. From then on, the pool became its home. There were no frightening large beasts here to eat it, and this place was a huge playground. It considered it as its amusement park. As it stayed longer and longer in the ice pool, it got stronger and stronger. Its body grew bigger until one day, it got enlightened and possessed the intelligence of a human. It knew how to think and became a thoughtful snake. It was unwilling to stay here and wished to leave this place. However, before departing, it wanted to swim into the depth of the pool to discover its secret. This ice pool was strange. The chill it gave off strengthened its ability. Besides, there was a strange power in it. In the past, it didn't understand, but after gaining intelligence, it knew what it was. Hence, it decided to swim to the bottom of the pool. It headed in the direction of the chill and swam all the way until it saw a gigantic skeleton. The skeleton was half covered by the soil. It circled the entire pool, and there seemed no end to it. The snake was at the location where the skull was. It saw an uneven round crystal floating inside the skull. It was giving off a faint mysterious glow and an ice-cold stream of energy, which spread to the entire pool. The snake couldn't shift its gaze away after seeing the crystal. It had a lethal attraction toward it. Chapter 804, Race Legacy. The snake salivated because of the skull. Following its heart, it swallowed the crystal. Boom! The next instant, terrifying energy exploded in its body. It finally regained its senses and felt frightened and shocked. It forgot that it was an intelligent snake. How could it swallow things without caution? It could die from eating random stuff. It didn't have the time to think properly. As the frightening energy wreaked havoc in its body, a memory surged into its mind. Its pitiful brain capacity hit its limit because of the huge chunk of memory. Then, it lost its consciousness. It didn't know how long it had slept. When it woke up, its body had grown 3 times bigger. Although it wasn't as big as the skeleton at the bottom of the pool, it was considered a huge python already. At the same time, many new memories had appeared in its mind. These memories allowed it to understand what cultivation and race legacy was. This race legacy came from a powerful star beast called the netherworld giant python. This race had difficulty producing offspring, so it was extremely rare. However, pureblood netherworld giant pythons had great potential and could grow extremely huge. Adult netherworld giant pythons were mostly at the emperor level. They could roam in the emptiness freely and were a powerful race in the universe. What the little snake swallowed was the legacy stone of the netherworld giant python race. It contained cultivation memories and the purest essence blood of the race. The little snake slowly evolved to become a real netherworld giant python after receiving the essence blood. It started cultivating continuously thereafter, and its ability rose exponentially. It only left the ice pool after it reached the emperor level. When the netherworld giant python returned to the location of the little crack, it realized that this place had been overtaken by a bunch of dark apparitions. At that moment, it already understood that the little crack didn't disappear. It was just hidden in the emptiness. At that time, it was too weak, so it couldn't detect its presence. Now, That little crack had expanded and turned into a huge dimensional rift connecting two worlds. The netherworld giant python had a strong desire to go home and look for its mother. The thought had become an obsession, so it planned to go back to Earth using this dimensional rift. Naturally, the appearance of a terrifying star beast alerted the formidable dark apparitions. Emperor-level star beasts were like the devil lords among the dark apparitions. The higher authorities of the dark apparitions sent a devil lord to confront the netherworld giant python. In the end, they reached an agreement and stopped fighting. The netherworld giant python passed through the dimensional rift safely and returned to Earth. After coming back, it discovered that its mother had died a long time ago in the hands of human martial warriors. The netherworld giant python had no good impression of humans. It yearned for its mother terribly only to find out that she had died. It was extremely furious. The devil lord accompanying it kept brainwashing it, so the thought of taking revenge on the humans grew in the heart of this netherworld giant python. It decided to cooperate with the dark apparitions to annihilate the humans on Earth. This was the cause of the Star Beast riot on Earth. Hey, why are you daydreaming? Are you lovesick? I might have killed some of your children, but you don't have to be in a hurry to make more snakes, an irritating voice was heard. The netherworld giant python was pulled out of its thoughts. It looked at Wang Ting in confusion. Make more snakes? It felt speechless suddenly. To hell with making small snakes. A normal person with a normal mind wouldn't think of this in such a situation. This human's mind was a little crooked. The netherworld giant python complained in its heart. It wanted to crush this human to death so much. Little snaky, where are you from? Why do you know Earth's language? Wang Ting opened his mouth again and asked. Little snaky. Zhu Xuanwu stared at Wang Ting with his mouth agape. What was he thinking when he called this gigantic python little snaky? The netherworld giant python was on the verge of losing its temper. It was a majestic netherworld giant python, yet this human called it little snaky. This was so embarrassing. You're a little snaky. Your entire family is a little snaky. Brat, how dare you humiliate me? The netherworld giant python hissed in anger. You haven't answered my question. Silence. You're looking for death. This was the first time the netherworld giant python found a human so irritating. The veins on its head throbbed furiously. It couldn't control its anger anymore and roared into the sky. Its giant tail hammered down from the dark clouds. Boom. Eruptions filled up the entire sky, and the air seemed to be trembling as if it was going to crack under the overwhelming pressure. This scene was terrifying. Words couldn't describe it. Move. Zhu Xuanwu was flabbergasted as he stared at the giant tail hammering down from the sky. His heart was filled with fear and amazement as he shot back like a bullet. He didn't even have a single thought of resisting. No ordinary martial warrior would be able to withstand such an attack. Even in this situation, Wang Ting only raised his head slightly without any fluctuation in his emotions. He stared at the giant tail as it plummeted towards him like a meteor. A strong gale caused his hair to dance crazily. If the giant tail landed on him, he would be smashed into minced human meat. The netherworld giant python stared at him intently with merciless eyes. Wang Ting suddenly snorted. Is he laughing? The netherworld giant python was surprised. He's laughing. Wang Ting raised his hand above his head with his palm facing upwards. Boom. A deafening explosion quaked the ground below his feet. Large patches of snow tumbled down from the peak, creating a huge avalanche. The scene everyone was expecting didn't happen. The large tail stopped in mid-air. He caught it. And he caught it with one hand. Wang Ting looked extremely tiny below the giant tail. Yet, he managed to stop the tail with one hand. He stood there casually without budging an inch. The mountain was still trembling, but the ground below him showed no signs of sinking in. He had received all the strength and power of this attack with his small and tiny body. The netherworld giant python squinted. It stared at the figure below its tail in disbelief. How is that possible? This attack might not be its strongest move, but it was still the attack of an emperor-level star beast. How could a puny human resist it? And only with one hand. The next instant, its gaze turned sharp, and killing intent shot out of it. This human was a huge threat since he possessed such power. It mustn't let him remain alive. The netherworld giant python pulled its tail, wanting to swing it back. However, it realized that no matter how hard it pulled, its tail refused to move at all. Sigma. Chapter 805. Come, mount the clouds and ride the mist. The netherworld giant python was dumbfounded. An ominous feeling emerged in its heart. There was something wrong with this human. Human, I shall give you a chance. Let go of my tail, or else. The python pretended to be calm and composed. Or what? Wang Teng asked as he held on to the python's tail with one hand while placing his other hand behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the python with an ambiguous smile. Don't be too full of yourself, human. I gave you a chance to surrender because I saw that you're quite capable. I didn't even use any strength just now. The giant python got flustered when it looked at Wang Teng's expression. However, it was good at bluffing too, as its tone remained unchanged, even putting on a look of disdain. Then I really need to thank you. Wang Teng rolled his eyes. Act. Go on. Try harder. He couldn't tell that this python was an expert in pretending just like him. Zhu Xuanwu was stunned. He had felt the tremors just now, and it showed how terrifying that blow was. Yet Wang Teng actually managed to stop that with one hand. Was he human? How terrifying was his strength to be able to do that so easily? It wasn't just about his strength. There were no cracks on the ground, meaning that Wang Teng had absorbed all that power with his physical body. If his body wasn't strong enough, that kind of power would have shredded him apart. Wang Teng's body must be frighteningly powerful. Zhu Xuanwu's heart shook as he gazed at Wang Teng in astonishment. This guy is really a monster. But it's just that his brain isn't wired normally. He actually has the time to chat with that giant python. That bastard needs to have some situational awareness. They were in a hurry. Zhu Xuanwu's heart was filled with complaints that he couldn't voice out. Wang Teng's face showed a trace of embarrassment and smiled at Zhu Xuanwu as though he had sensed his resentment. He then turned serious and looked up. Let's end this. I'll give you a chance as well. Surrender or die. Netherworld giant python. Damn, how ruthless. The conversation was going well until his expression changed. Humans are all cold-blooded animals. However, it was impossible for the netherworld giant python to surrender. The pride of the pythons never allowed them to be so cowardly. Furthermore, they hadn't gotten serious. It was still hard to tell who would emerge victorious. It was just a little doubtful just now. It didn't mean that it was afraid. A mighty emperor-level netherworld giant python was strong. Really strong. To show that it wasn't cowardly, the giant python let out a hiss. It looked ferocious as the air billowed. Extremely ferocious. Die. The upper body of the giant python finally emerged from the dark cloud and slammed towards Wang Teng. Its huge maw was wide open as though it was swallowing the sky. Wang Teng raised his head and could only see a dark hole and those huge, ferocious fangs. Everything else was covered. He measured himself and felt that his small body couldn't fit between the gaps of its fangs. As the messy thought flashed by, Wang Teng let go of the python's tail and disappeared from his spot. Boom. The netherworld giant python closed its mouth and swallowed a mouth of cool air. This tastes wonderful. My foot. It quickly raised its head and searched for that human figure. Right then, it suddenly felt its head sink. Then came the human's voice, "Little snaky, come, mount the clouds and ride the mist. Go." Zhu Xuanwu was no longer worried about Wang Teng's safety anymore. He could tell that the brat didn't take the giant python seriously. This was a solid performance. The only thing that left him speechless was that this guy was too reckless. Go. What go? Only he could have thought about riding that giant python like a horse. The netherworld giant python was alarmed when it was stepped on. However, it was infuriated after hearing Wang Teng's words. Extremely furious. This human is so bold, how dare he use me as a mount? Get off me. The netherworld giant python shook its head wildly in a bid to fling that bastard off. Don't bother. You can't get rid of me. They used to call me a driver from Initial D. A small worm like you flinging me off will only be an insult to my nickname, Wang Ting said as he held on to the python's horn lightly with one hand. Initial D. The netherworld giant python didn't understand what that was. But it could tell that nothing good ever came out of this human's mouth. However, this was not the time to think about this. It realized something embarrassing. It shook its head for the longest time, yet it was still unable to get that human off. This was bad. But when it felt something touching its horn, a treacherous smile appeared in its eyes. You're looking for death. The giant python sneered, and the gold pattern on its horn suddenly lit up. An extreme chill was blasted from it. In just an instant, Wang Ting's hand, including the horn, was frozen with a thick layer of black ice. It even spread towards his body. Wang Tung's eyes flashed. He felt the chill penetrating his body as if it would freeze his whole body, even the force inside him. This is interesting. The next moment, the emerald glazed flame surged from his body. Boom! The emerald flames erupted from his arms, burning within the black ice. Scorching heat emanated from the black ice. The sturdy and tough ice melted, and in a short while, Wang Ting's arm was clasping the horn as per normal. I'll let you taste my flames too. The corner of Wang Ting's mouth showed a slight arc as the flames danced and enveloped the horn. The netherworld giant python was terrified. It channeled the force in its body into frost and shot it out from its horn. The frost of the black ice clashed against the heat of the flames. However, the divine flame already had a reputation. In the hands of a planetary stage martial warrior like Wang Teng, it became even more horrifying. The clash didn't last long. The emerald glazed flame quickly gained the upper hand. The black ice gradually retreated, and the wave of heat seared into the horn. Howl! The netherworld giant python was an ice element star beast and was afraid of flames. Furthermore, the horn was the most sensitive part of its body. The amount of pain inflicted was multiplied, causing it to let out a shrill howl. Chapter 806, I beg you to come down. An evil smile appeared at the edge of Wang Ting's lips when he heard the agonizing scream. What do you think? Is it good? Do you feel amazing? Do you want me to raise the temperature? The netherworld giant python suddenly felt that this human was the devil. Zhu Xuanwu, who was on the other side, thought so too. The giant python's body swung wildly. If Zhu Xuanwu didn't stay far away, he would have been hit. He couldn't withstand that kind of terrifying power. But it was still fun to watch. For some reason, looking at Wang Ting torturing that frightening giant python was rather entertaining. Not good. Looks like I need more power. Seeing that the giant python was silent, Wang Ting immediately condensed the emerald glazed flame, causing the temperature above the horn to rise rapidly. Howl! Pain! 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 The giant python suddenly let out another tragic howl and twitched fiercely as it rolled amongst the dark clouds, fading in and out. The scene was frightening. It felt like it was about to explode. The netherworld giant pythons feared fire the most, and the heat was grilling it. I'm about to die. Look at this, you did well mounting the clouds and riding the mist. Wang Teng's voice had a trace of mockery and was full of praise as he opened his mouth. You, get off me. The netherworld giant python shouted again and shook its head frantically as though it was having a seizure. Calm down, calm down. It's just the beginning. It'll make you feel so amazing. Wang Teng smiled. I'm amazed, I'm amazed. Don't do it again. The giant python suddenly shuddered and felt chills as it shouted hurriedly. Really? Wang Teng asked curiously. Really? Yes. The giant python didn't dare to say no, fearing that Wang Teng wouldn't believe it. It had completely lost its pride. The dignity of the netherworld giant python was just a passing cloud. It was not worth mentioning. Staying alive was more important. How amazing was it? Wang Teng questioned. The giant python was stunned for a moment. Its mind was going berserk. What's with that question? Why are you asking me again when I've already told you it was amazing? Are you going to get to the bottom of this? There must be a problem with this human's brain. Has a problem, child. You don't have an answer. It looks like it wasn't enough. Wang Ting shook his head, and the temperature in his hands rose again. Ah, the netherworld giant python roared in pain and was about to vomit blood. However, it had to shout, amazing, very amazing, extremely amazing. It secretly told itself that this wasn't cowardice. It was just a strategic move. The netherworld giant python suppressed its feelings. Deceive this human first and kill him later. That's right. I worked so hard, how can it not be amazing? Wang Ting nodded. Yes, it's too amazing. I've already experienced it. Stop wasting your force. I beg you to come down. The giant python's eyes were filled with tears. This little snaky is very good at talking. But there's no need for you to worry about my force reserves. Since you find it so amazing, let's have another round. I love satisfying others. Save your thanks, Wang Ting said. The netherworld giant python was dazed. Things shouldn't go like this. Wasn't he going to let it go after it said that it was amazing? Why wasn't this human keeping his word? Humans really are liars. They just love to deceive others. Sob. Thank you. Why should I thank you? I will kill you with my spit. Zhu Xuanwu almost burst out laughing. Wang Ting was such a prankster that he could even make a star beast have doubts about life. Perhaps only Wang Ting could be able to do such a thing. Wang Ting increased the intensity of his flames and roasted the horn red. The gold patterns on the horn started turning crimson and emitting steam. Howl. The netherworld giant python kept making strange noises as it inched closer to death. It was too painful. There was nothing more unbearable than the scorching heat. It was simply the cruelest form of torture that the giant python had encountered in its life. Crack. Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound resounded in the sky. The netherworld giant python's body stiffened. What was that sound? Why was there such a bad feeling? What? Your horn seems to be broken, Wang Ting said with a bit of guilt as he looked at the horn. Cracks were forming on it. Broken. The horn is broken. The giant python's eyes went dull as though it couldn't accept the fact. Crack, crack. A series of cracking sounds followed. Each crack was like an arrow piercing the giant python's heart. Its heart hurt. Crack. Snap. Suddenly, after a crisp sound, the entire horn shattered, breaking away from the netherworld giant python's head. Roar. The giant python went mad. With a flick of its head, it threw Wang Ting, who had lost his footing, away. Its body flew out of the dark clouds and turned into a black whip, rushing towards Wang Ting, who was still in midair. You actually destroyed my horn, damned human. The intense pain had caused the giant python to lose its mind. It roared angrily as an intense black light condensed in its mouth. A black beam of light then shot out. Oh crap. This is crazy. Crazy. Wang Ting flipped his body and took a step in midair. He vanished from his spot, avoiding the beam in the nick of time. Boom. The black beam struck a mountain some distance away, raising the upper half of the mountain along with itself. This is a dark force attack. Wang Ting's eyes narrowed slightly. He stepped forward, charging toward the netherworld giant python in a streak of light. Since you're so eager to die, I'll grant you your wish. Wang Tung's eyes flashed. He slashed fiercely with the sword that had appeared in his hand. Planetary stage battle technique. Starfire sword slash. A flaming sword glow erupted from his sword, covering 100 feet in an instant. It rushed up the sky. When Wang Ting swung the sword, it came slashing down. The netherworld giant python spewed out a black beam of light again. It was much stronger than the previous one, and it brazenly faced the sword glow coming toward it. Boom. The two forces clashed in the sky. The rich black light and the dazzling crimson sword glow weaved against each other, setting off rumbling explosions. Boom. Eventually, the crimson sword glow sliced the black beam and continued stabbing forward. The giant python's pupils shrank into pinholes. It was terrified to the core as it soared into the sky, rushing towards the area with dark clouds. Thinking of running away? The cold light in Wang Ting's eyes flickered as his spiritual power poured out of his body and changed the trajectory of the sword glow, sending it upwards. The giant python, who had dodged it initially, suddenly felt a sharp pain in its body. Splurt! Its huge body was split into two, and blood spurted out. However, the netherworld giant python wasn't dead yet. It dragged along the remaining half of its crippled body and continued to flee towards the area with dark clouds. At the same time, it let out a roar. Wu Jiyu, are you not going to act? Chapter 807, Black Skull. The tragic cries of the netherworld giant python echoed in the sky. The poor snake sounded helpless and pitiful. It was indeed in a tragic state. Only half of its large body was left. The excruciating pain stimulated its nerves again and again. Honestly, it hurt. However, the pain of losing the horn on its head was still the worst. The netherworld giant python had an ultimate move, but it required its horn to launch it. Great, this move failed before he could even use it. If not, he wouldn't have been defeated by Wang Ting so easily. Wang Ting's luck was too good. He caught the python's weak point from the get-go, even breaking it accidentally. Actually, the netherworld giant python's horn was extremely tough. Ordinary martial warriors wouldn't be able to break it. Wang Ting possessed the emerald glazed flame, which was a counter to its ability. This was fate. What could it do? The netherworld giant python only wanted to escape now. It wanted to run far away. Staying alive was the most important. Dignity. Ego. What were they? Could they be eaten? That wasn't all. It disregarded its status as an emperor-level star beast and begged for help from that sinister fellow. It didn't care anymore. It just wanted to remain alive. Only that fellow could save it now. Wang Ting also heard the netherworld giant python's cry. His gaze shimmered slightly, and he looked into the sky. Wu Jiyu. So there is someone else. Wang Ting muttered to himself. He wasn't in a hurry to act. Since the giant python pleaded for help from someone, they must be at the same level. He wanted to see what kind of presence it was. Zhu Xuanwu, who was standing some distance away, tensed up. He was surprised and overjoyed when he saw the giant python getting chopped into two. Wang Ting was indeed powerful. He was able to injure this powerful giant python, but before he could cheer, he heard the python's angry roar. His heart skipped a beat. There was another person. Was it another powerful being at Wang Ting's level? What was wrong with this world? In the past, there was no sign of any powerful creatures, but now, they started blossoming like the flowers in spring. Everyone waited for the unknown being to appear, but the sky remained silent. There wasn't even a drop of rain, much less a living creature. Are you putting on a fake show to fool me? Wang Ting asked with a black face. Netherworld giant python. I don't understand either. It was having a mental breakdown. Damn it, was that bastard going to watch it die? As expected, other races couldn't be trusted. I was an idiot to believe you. The netherworld giant python was furious. It hurriedly shot towards the dark clouds. It was getting closer and closer. It would enter the clouds soon. A tinge of happiness appeared in the netherworld giant python's eyes. Once it reached the dimensional rift behind the dark clouds, it could return to the Darkland. The human behind it would never be able to catch it. Human, when I recover, I'll return this agony 100 times back to you. Seeing that it was about to reach the dark clouds, the netherworld giant python couldn't help but remember its encounter today. Its expression turned distorted, and it screamed loudly as it hurled a threat at Wang Ting. Then, it prepared to launch itself into the dark clouds. The threat sounded fierce, but its speed of running away didn't decrease. It dared to do this because it had arrived in front of the dimensional rift and could enter it in the next second. The human behind him was still a long distance away. He would never be able to catch up. However, things seemed different from what it expected. It realized that it couldn't move. It couldn't move. It had stopped abruptly before the dark clouds and couldn't move an inch closer. What happened? What's going on with me? I'm going to have a nervous breakdown soon. The netherworld giant python was stunned. It realized that it was still able to move its head, so it turned its neck stiffly and looked behind. The human was looking at him contemptuously. He was still standing there with no signs of moving, but it must be him. No doubt about that. It was definitely him. Yes, it was him. There was no other possibility. Run, why aren't you running? Wang Teng opened his mouth and asked slowly. The netherworld giant python almost teared up. These were tears of regret. This human was too infuriating. It was full of regret. It shouldn't have threatened him. Wasn't it better for him to jump into the dimensional rift quickly and escape? Look, it couldn't escape now. Wang Ting strolled over step by step and stopped in front of the netherworld giant python. The snake was deeply alarmed. It was panic-stricken. I gave you the chance, but you disappointed me. Wang Ting patted the netherworld giant python's head and said earnestly, "Why don't you give me another chance?" The netherworld giant python trembled in fear. "Are you daydreaming?" Wang Ting asked. "Spare me, and I'll leave immediately. The beast tide on Earth will disappear too." The netherworld giant python backed down. "I'll kill you, and the beast tide will still disappear," Wang Ting said. "No, if you kill me, you will stir up a greater beast tide." The netherworld giant python shook its head anxiously. "I gave a firm order. All the star beasts will attack the human cities and destroy everything. They won't stop even if I die. You might not know, but most of the beast tides in country Shia have been suppressed. There are planetary stage martial warriors in other countries. You should know about the planetary stage, right? Beast tides won't affect them," Wang Ting said calmly. "Even so, the majority of the humans will be killed. Are you going to let them die?" The giant netherworld giant python was dumbfounded. It stared at Wang Ting as if he was a devil. "I'm only a human. I can't care about everything." Wang Ting shook his head indifferently. The netherworld giant python didn't know what to say. "All right, accept your death obediently. My hands are fast. I promise that you'll only feel a second of pain before you die. Don't worry." Wang Ting raised his hand and pasted it on the netherworld giant python's forehead. The netherworld giant python almost went crazy. Damn it, what does he think he's saying? A second of pain is still a pain. This human was a devil. The netherworld giant python was in despair. However, it was unwilling to die so easily. It bellowed once again. Wu Ji Yu, the same name. It was begging for help. He was its last hope. "Sigh, have you finished watching the good show?" A peal of cynical laughter spread out slowly. "Are you finally willing to come out?" Wang Ting calmly looked in the direction of the noise. He saw a black skull popping its head stealthily out of the dark clouds. A surprised look appeared in Wang Ting's eyes. A black skull with two balls of dull blue ghost fire flickering in its empty eye sockets. Chapter 808. This was a heartless skull. He looked a little funny for some reason. He was a skull, but it had the expressions of a human. That sneaky look seemed a little cheeky. However, neither Wang Ting nor Zhu Xuanwu laughed. They stared grimly at the skull head. On the other hand, the netherworld giant python was elated. He seemed to have found his life savior. "Wu Ji Yu, you finally came. Save me. Please save me. You're too noisy." "Shut up." Bang. Halfway through its sentence, Wang Ting slapped its head and forced it to close its mouth. It almost pierced its own tongue with its sharp fangs. "Oh my, this little brother seems a bit fierce." The skull above pulled a smile on his face. He stretched his skeleton arm out from the dark clouds and touched his chin with his bare and bony fingers. His upper and lower jaws moved, and to everyone's surprise, he could speak. Wang Ting raised his head and seemed dumbfounded. Imitating the skeleton's tone, he said, "Oh my, this skeleton can speak." Zhu Xuanwu. Netherworld giant python. Wu Ji Yu. The skeleton was stunned, the dull blue ghost flames in his eyes flickering a little. He moved his jaws again and said, "This young lad is very interesting. This skull is very interesting." Wang Ting gave a look of interest and clicked his tongue. "This young lad is mischievous. The ghost flames in his eyes stopped moving for a split second. This skull is mischievous, Wang Ting said without changing his expression. The skull was in a daze. He finally felt that he had met the archenemy of his life. This human was as irritating as him. Alright, the game ends here. I'm not playing anymore. Let's get down to business. The skull shrugged and jumped out from behind the dark clouds. His body was finally revealed to Wang Teng and Zhu Xuanwu. This was a black skeleton. Besides being pitch black, he was no different from other skeletons. Alright, the game ends here. I'm not playing anymore. Let's get down to business, Wang Ting shrugged and said. The skull felt helpless. Hey, I said that I'm not playing anymore. Why are you still continuing? Are you a recorder? Huh? Don't you know that it's human nature to repeat after others? Wang Ting said indifferently. Ah, my bad. Nice to meet you, recorder. The skull rubbed his bald head and said in embarrassment. Forget it, you're just a skull. I can't expect too much from you. Wang Ting waved his hand as if he was being broad-minded. Thank you for being understanding. The skull seemed extremely grateful. The human and skeleton went through a few verbal confrontations. None of them gained any advantage. The skull bowed slightly and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Wu Jiyu from the spiritual bone tribe." When he straightened his spine, a black formal hat appeared in his hand. He wore it on his head. The spiritual bone tribe, Wang Ting wondered to himself. This was the first time he had heard of this tribe. He glanced at Zhu Xuanwu and noticed that he seemed at a loss too. He probably hadn't heard of this tribe either. Wu Jiyu, why are you still talking to him? Save me. The netherworld giant python couldn't bear it anymore and shouted again. Why hadn't they finished their chat? It was heavily injured. It was only left with half of its body. Shouldn't you care about the feelings of this injured snake? Bastards. You're really noisy, Wang Ting said eerily as he turned and glanced at the netherworld giant python. The netherworld giant python shuddered, feeling a chill running down its spine. Its large and round eyes were filled with fear. Since the dark apparition behind you has appeared, you have no use now. The instant he finished speaking, a sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed it down at the speed of lightning. Blade glow cut through the air. Swoosh. The netherworld giant python was flabbergasted. Blood gushed out from the intersection between its head and its body as if there was an endless supply of it. The water shot like an opened water tap. Then, the head parted with its body. Zhu Xuanwu was stunned. Wu Jiyu from the spiritual bone tribe was appalled too. This human was brutal. He slashed the snake without any hesitation. What a poor little snake tool. Even the netherworld giant python was shocked. Immeasurable fear struck it head-on. It was sucked into a bottomless abyss. No, the netherworld giant python gave its last roar of anger. It stared at Wu Jiyu intently with a revengeful gaze. Why didn't he save me after he came out? Why? Why? Boom. The giant python head crashed into the ground, giving a dull thud. Oh my, it's dead. Wu Jiyu sighed in pity. Zhu Xuanwu. He felt that the skull's acting was terrible. There was no sincerity at all. He seemed indifferent, as if someone unrelated to him had died. This was a heartless skull. However, Wang Ting was cold-blooded too. He killed the python after its utility expired. Come, let's continue playing. Wang Ting smiled and looked at Wu Jiyu. Alright, what shall we play? Wu Jiyu chuckled. Why don't we play the eagle catches chicken game? I'll be the eagle and you can be the chick, Wang Ting said. Zhu Xuanwu was puzzled. What did he mean by the eagle catching chicken? Honestly, he wanted to open Wang Ting's skull and see what his mind was made of. Why was his thinking so strange? Why don't you be the chick? Wu Jiyu asked curiously. Wang Ting didn't reply to him. However, he was already staring at the lower half of Wu Gus's body with an ambiguous gaze. Wu Jiyu was puzzled. Then, he felt speechless once again. Oh, okay. Wu Jiyu was defeated once again. He covered his chest and took 3 heavy steps back as if he got heavily injured and pointed at Wang Ting. Leaning backward, he screamed, "Ah, I'm dead." He fell straight back into the clouds and floated there silently. Zhu Xuanwu. Where did this strange skull come from? He was having a mental breakdown. One Wang Ting was enough. Now, there was another weird skull in the mix. The human and the skeleton looked like two fellow ward mates who had escaped from the mental hospital. They were having a whale of a time. Fake. Wang Teng didn't notice Zhu Xuanwu's hidden bitterness. He stared at Wu Jiyu grumpily. Huh? Really? My acting has never been bad. Wu Jiyu raised his head and exclaimed in surprise. Of course. I could tell at one glance. Sigh, what a failure. Wu Jiyu leaped up and patted the invisible dust on his body. I suggest that you start training your acting skills by playing an insignificant role first. Every extra has the potential to become the main lead. I know someone that kept being an extra until he became the Oscar winner. Wang Teng spouted nonsense. Extra? Wu Jiyu was dumbfounded. He remained humbled and asked, what does being an extra mean? Oh, it means that you can act in any role. You might be a deliveryman, a passerby, an attendant, etc. It's a group of people that fulfill side characters. Most importantly, they can act as corpses. They are amazing at it. They have many different ways of dying. I promise that you'll be able to learn how to act like a corpse properly. Wang Teng tried to fool him. Where do I go to be an extra? The ghost fire burned furiously in Wu Gus's eyes. He asked in an excited tone. He even ran forward and wanted to grab Wang Teng's hand, looking anxious. Hengdian welcomes you. Wang Teng replied with a shimmering gaze. At this moment, Wu Jiyu had arrived in front of him. His bony arm turned extremely sharp like a bone blade, aiming straight at Wang Teng's abdomen. He wanted to dig out his kidney. Wang Teng remained calm, but his actions didn't slow down. He clenched his fist and hurled it at the bony hand. The ghost fire in Wu Gus's eyes fluttered. He had no choice but to change his attack from a bone blade to a palm attack. He received Wang Teng's fist. Boom! An explosion occurred, and the force impact swept through the mountain. The two of them separated the instant they collided. Soon, only their lingering shadows could be seen. You're treacherous, Mr. Skull, Wang Teng said calmly. Same to you. Wu Jiyu chuckled. He stretched his hand, cracking his bones. I heard that you have great strength. No wonder you're able to stop the netherworld giant python's attack with your bare hands. Why don't you experience it personally? Wang Teng vanished after he finished his sentence and appeared in front of Wu Jiyu. He smashed his fist at the skeleton. Strength of Ultima. Boom. A terrifying explosion occurred. His fist was aimed directly at Wu Gus's head. If he succeeded in his attack, the skull would most likely shatter into bone fragments. Ha ha ha. Wu Jiyu giggled. He released his fist and met Wang Teng's move. Boom. Their fists collided in mid-air. There was a momentary pause. No one could overpower the other. Wang Teng was stunned. This was the first time his strength of Ultima failed in pushing his enemy back. This skeleton wasn't easy to deal with. The two of them parted instantly before exchanging blows again. Wang Teng activated the ancient god's body and increased his strength to the maximum. He attacked Wu Jiyu again. The ancient god's body was extremely frightening. Wu Gus's expression finally changed with the added strength. Although the skull's face remained the same, one could tell that his expression had turned grim. He couldn't smile anymore as he needed to withstand Wang Teng's fist aura with all his power. Even so, he kept retreating under Wang Teng's fist aura. The entire skeleton was cracking loudly. Zhu Xuanwu could feel his pain. Could a skeleton feel pain? Oh my, this is a good question. Zhu Xuanwu's expression changed. If he couldn't feel any pain, Wang Teng's attack would be in vain. Should he tell him now? Zhu Xuanwu was in a dilemma. He didn't know if he should open his mouth. What if Wang Teng beat him up in a fit of anger? Forget it. Looking at the power and viciousness of his fist, Zhu Xuanwu decided not to be a busybody. He seemed to have much strength left in him. Releasing a few more fists wouldn't harm him. Boom. Wang Teng frowned. He seemed to have noticed this too. He threw out a powerful punch and flung Wu Jiyu 10 meters back. Wu Jiyu only stopped after flipping a few times in the air. He staggered with much effort. Chapter 809. They're coming. Ouch, the pain, pain. My little fist is hurting. Wu Jiyu tumbled a few times before standing up in mid-air and crying in pain. Wang Ting. Fake. Extremely fake. It was absolutely exaggerating. He could tell that his fist might hurt a little if he wanted to beat this skeleton up. However, he still wanted to see if he could break his bones. He was surprised that he failed. Mind you, he had used the ancient god's body and the strength of Ultima simultaneously. Even the physical body of a planetary stage martial warrior would be smashed by his attack. Yet, this skeleton remained unscathed. This was unbelievable. He was just a skinny and small skeleton. Look at those thin arms and legs. They looked as if they would break easily, but they were extremely sturdy. Wang Ting's gaze flickered, but his expression remained unchanged. Clenching his sword, frightening energy exploded on its blade. Slash. He released his sword attack without the slightest hesitation. The sword glow stretched a few hundred meters. Wow. Wu Jiyu gave a weird scream. He raised his hands hurriedly and blocked them in front of him. The black bones on his body started squirming vigorously, forming a large black bone shield in front of him. The bone shield was diamond-shaped, and the skeleton's skull was carved on the surface, with sharp bones sticking out of the edges. It looked fierce and hideous. This all happened too quickly. The sword glow shot towards him and crashed directly into the bone shield. Boom! A violent explosion resounded in the air. Wu Jiyu was knocked more than 10 meters back again by the sword glow, but it didn't hurt him. However, that bone shield was crushed. Only a fragment of the main body remained. The edges were all broken. Even so, the bone shield vibrated and merged back into Wu Gus's body after some time. It didn't seem affected. Wang Ting's gaze shimmered. He was astounded. Wu Gus's ability was extremely odd and mysterious. He could lengthen his bones and turn them into various items. This change broke the law of energy conservation. Wu Jiyu had a limited number of bones on his skeleton. Even if he used all his bones, he would only be able to form half of that shield. So, where did all the bones from that bone shield come from? Newton is going to crawl out of his coffin. Wang Ting was full of complaints. However, these bones were truly tough. They might have broken at the end, but they managed to block his sword aura. The defense ability was astonishing. Also, the bones seemed to be able to regenerate. Breaking them wouldn't destroy them completely. Wang Ting suddenly felt his head spinning. This skeleton was a little hard to deal with. Hey, where did that enthusiastic young man go? Wu Jiyu stretched the bones on its body, causing them to crack loudly. He chuckled and said, "I've completed my mission, so I won't be playing with you anymore." Wang Ting frowned uncontrollably. What did this skeleton mean? His mission. A bad feeling floated into Wang Ting's heart. Look. Wu Jiyu knew what Wang Ting was thinking, so he raised his skull and pointed to the sky. They are coming. A loud explosion was heard immediately after. Wang Ting's expression changed instantly. He hurriedly looked up. The dark clouds in the sky moved abruptly and started tossing and turning. They churned violently like a pot of boiling water. A large vortex started forming at an incredible speed in the middle. The dark clouds spun around it. Thunder roared, and thick bolts of lightning struck down, creating terrifying ringing sounds in the air. Wu Jiyu stood right below the vortex and opened his arms gradually. Then, he raised them up. Silver bolts of lightning flashed around him, but none of them hit his body. Rather, they made him look like the king of hell. "What are you doing?" Wang Ting asked sternly with a grave expression. "Shush." Wu Jiyu raised his forefinger and placed it beside his teeth, signaling Wang Ting to keep quiet. "Don't speak. Feel the might of heaven." What a mesmerizing scene. Wang Ting's expression turned ugly. This skeleton was indeed a maniac. Boom. At this moment, a bolt of lightning as thick as a water pipe struck the ground to his left. A deep and burnt hole was formed instantly. Wang Ting wasn't afraid of lightning, but Zhu Xuanwu kept retreating. He moved as far as he could from the center of the vortex. The closer it was to the center, the denser and more frightening the bolts of lightning were. Even a 13-star general stage martial warrior didn't dare to stay in that environment. Zhu Xuanwu could feel an exceptionally powerful destructing presence blowing around him. Boom! 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 Bolts of lightning struck the ground all around Wang Ting, but he didn't move. His brows were locked together, and he seemed to be in deep thought. Wang Ting! Zhu Xuanwu was appalled. He shouted anxiously. This was too dangerous. If Wang Ting continued standing there, he could be struck by lightning and explode into pieces. Are you thinking of damaging the dimensional rift? Wu Jiyu smiled as he spoke. He saw through Wang Ting's thoughts. Wang Ting didn't reply to him. Any struggle is pointless. The dimensional rift is fully formed, and there are 3 devil lords guarding it. You won't be able to destroy it alone, Wu Jiyu replied to his own question with a smile. Y'all are prepared to make a massive invasion into Earth, Wang Ting said in a cold voice. Oh, you just realized it. Unfortunately, it's too late. Wu Jiyu smiled happily. He sounded like a madman as he continued, look at this planet, look at how beautiful, clean, and peaceful it is. What a perfect planet to destroy. Lunatic. Zhu Xuanwu turned furious when he heard Wu Gus' words. He moved his lips but only managed to force this word out of his mouth after a long moment of silence. This skeleton felt that destroying planets and different worlds was an interesting thing to do. He could sense it from his tone. Dark apparitions were all lunatics. They were mad. I think that the Darkland is prettier. Why don't we destroy it first? Wang Ting remained composed and tilted his head as he looked at Wu Jiyu. The ghost fire in Wu Gus' eyes froze for a second. He lowered his head and stared into Wang Ting's eyes. The atmosphere turned extremely tense. Did you say that you want to destroy the Darkland? Wu Gus' voice was filled with disbelief as if he had heard something ridiculous and funny. He burst out laughing. Zhu Xuanwu stared at Wang Ting like he had seen a ghost. He was astounded too. This fellow was honestly daring. He dared to think about it and say it. It was already hard enough for them to survive under the constant assault of the dark apparitions. Yet, he wanted to destroy their world. He must have gone crazy. Is it funny? Wang Ting asked calmly. Yes, indeed. Oh my, this is so funny. You don't understand the immensity of heaven and earth. How can you think of destroying the Darkland? Wu Jiyu nodded his head fervently. His action was too vigorous, so his skull dropped from his neck with a loud crack. Fortunately, he was nimble and caught it. Well, you could say that he was used to it. He fixed his skull back on his spine and apologized. Sorry, I didn't fix it properly the previous time. Wang Ting. Zhu Xuanwu. Chapter 8:10. One planet, one gamble. Can you have some decency when talking about serious matters? Wang Ting said calmly as he looked at Wu Jiyu, who was still fiddling with his head. Sorry. I'll have it fixed properly this time. I'll make sure it doesn't fall off anymore. Wu Jiyu apologized profusely in embarrassment. Is that the issue here? Zhu Xuanwu was exasperated. But as soon as the words came out of his mouth, he broke down. He felt that he had changed, like he was going to be assimilated by the 2 idiots. Wait. I'm not an idiot. Boom. The changes in the sky became more intense as time went by. Dark clouds were rolling, and the huge vortex continued to expand. It churned at an incredible speed. Lightning bolts struck from above, wreaking havoc within a radius of dozens of meters. The area with dark clouds was originally just above the top of the mountain, but it had expanded rapidly, reaching a distance of 100 feet. At a glance, it was black and dark, and it was impossible to see anything inside it. There was also a strong force pulling everything in. The trees and boulders flew up into the sky uncontrollably, got swallowed by the vortex, and disintegrated into bits. When Wang Ting and Zhu Xuanwu saw this, their expressions became extremely solemn. However, there was a hint of surprise in Wang Ting's eyes. He could see attribute bubbles falling from the vortex. Although the situation didn't seem good, it was still necessary to collect the attributes. Pick them all. Space *35 space *50 space *65 space *55. The attribute bubbles were absorbed by Wang Ting's body. Currently, the system had defined space physique as his space talent. With the absorption of the attribute bubbles, he immediately felt that he became more sensitive to space. In just a short while, he had picked up all the space attributes that were dropped. His space physique was raised rapidly with a full 1150 points. Space physique 111501000000, first rank. As the attribute bubbles merged into his body, he could feel a vast difference in his body. It was as if every inch of his flesh could feel the fluctuations of space, as though he had completely integrated into space itself. However, that feeling only lasted for a moment. It seemed as though he was only this sensitive when there was an improvement. Wang Tung's eyes flashed. He had even more belief in the strength of the space physique. If he could raise the level of space physique even higher, he might even be able to travel freely in space. How free would that be? No matter how vast, he would be able to travel to the ends of the universe. Wang Ting's mouth curved slightly as he thought about this. Over at the side, Zhu Xuanwu was dumbfounded. How could that brat still smile in such a situation? He must be mad. Wu Jiyu was a little surprised too. Did I scare this human's head off? I'm sorry. Brother Zhu, go back and tell the others to get ready, Wang Ting said. Aren't you going back with me? Zhu Xuanwu's expression changed slightly. Leave first. Wang Ting didn't look back as he stared at the vortex above his head. It was still dropping attribute bubbles. Be careful. Zhu Xuanwu nodded solemnly with a tragic expression. He then flashed away with great resolve and flew into the distance without turning back. Don't worry, Wang Ting. I'll definitely bring the news back. Hold on, you can't just die like this. Wu Jiyu smiled and let Zhu Xuanwu leave. Looking at his expression, he seems to have misunderstood something. Wang Ting thought about it curiously and shook his head. Who cares? I can't curse him to death anyway. Anyway, picking up the attributes is more important. There are so many space attributes. That's hard to come by. Pick them all. Space *60 space *115 space *85 space *120. Aren't you afraid? Wu Jiyu suddenly asked. He seemed a little surprised. Afraid of what? Wang Ting returned the question. That we will kill you. There was finally a trace of killing intent in his voice as he spoke coldly. Or are you really naive to think that you can destroy the Darkland? I wouldn't know if I didn't try, Wang Ting replied nonchalantly. Afraid? I'm not afraid of bugs like you that breed in the dark corners. Bugs? The ghost flames in Wu Gus' sockets flickered. You call us bugs? Well, I'm just stating facts. Wang Ting shrugged. How long has it been? It's been a while since someone made me this angry. Oh, how I've missed it. There was a trace of nostalgia in Wu Gus' voice, accompanied by an intense chill. He then laughed. How about we play a game? A real game. Oh, what game? Wang Ting asked with great interest. The armies of my race are reaching any moment now, and you can't stop them. But I can give you a chance by stopping all the dark apparitions from attacking. Let's have a gamble. The winner takes all. How about that? Wu Jiyu smiled. Interesting. Wang Ting caressed his chin and nodded. What are we betting on? It's very simple. Choose a place, and the two sides will fight till a winner is determined. Wu Gus' laughter was filled with bloodlust and cruelty. Why? Wang Ting was unaffected and suddenly asked without putting any thought into the question. Wu Jiyu seemed to know what he was asking. Because I like to see you humans in despair, to watch humans struggle desperately, when there is nothing you can do but die. Don't you find it interesting? Wang Ting let out an inexplicable chuckle. Why should I trust you? That's a small issue. I'll just sign a spiritual contract, Wu Jiyu said indifferently. A black scroll appeared in his hand, and it looked similar to the spiritual contract that Wang Ting had seen before. How's that? Want to play? I'll play. Why wouldn't I? Since you want it, I'll give it to you. Let's see who would be dying. Wang Teng smirked. Very well, I like your confidence. I hope you can maintain that till the end. Wu Jiyu opened the scroll and wrote the contents before signing his name on it. Just when he was about to throw the scroll over, Wang Teng said, Your signature alone isn't enough. I can't be sure that the other dark apparitions won't attack. You don't believe me? Wu Jiyu was enraged. That's right. I don't trust you at all. Wang Teng nodded. You've made this skeleton sad. Wu Jiyu covered his face and wept. However, seeing that Wang Ting wasn't going to pay any attention, he couldn't continue acting. He spread his hands and smiled. All right. I'll give in. I'll get the dispatched devil lords to sign the contract as well. He threw the scroll into the vortex and clasped his hand around his mouth, shouting, Hey, you guys, sign that contract. I want to play with this human. Silence. After a while, a hoarse voice came from within the vortex. Are you sure you want to do this, Wu Jiyu? A charming voice followed. If you fail, you know the consequences. Although I love to see them dying in despair, you are crossing the line. We will lose our initiative by signing this contract. Another cold voice resounded. Relax. How can I possibly lose? Wu Jiyu dismissed them with a wave of his hand. There was silence in the vortex. Forget it. You're responsible for this. The spiritual scroll was thrown down after the hoarse voice finished speaking. Not a problem. I'll be responsible if anything goes wrong. Wu Jiyu assured. He then threw the scroll to Wang Ting. Take it. Sign your name, and it's done. Wang Ting's eyes flashed as he looked at the contract. Besides Wu Gus's name, there were 3 others, Phantasma, Black Incubus, and Amalgadon. Black Incubus is actually here. Wang Ting couldn't help but feel a little surprised. She knew he was here, yet she didn't say anything. She controlled herself well. When the 3 dark apparitions were chatting with each other, Wang Teng had used Eyes of Essence and Spiritual Sight to peek at them through the spatial cracks. There were indeed 3 devil lords, and without a doubt, one of them was her. Seeing that there was no problem with the content of the scroll, Wang Ting stopped hesitating and signed his name. As soon as the names were signed, the spiritual contract was officially formed. Both parties knew about the bindings of the contract. Even at their ranks, they wouldn't be able to break free from the repercussions. The humans would never have imagined that Wang Ting would sign a contract concerning their planet's fate just like that. It was too hasty. Of course, in a sense, Wang Ting had undoubtedly made a decision that was best under the circumstances. After all, the dimensional rift had been opened, the arrival of the dark apparitions was inevitable. No one could stop it. If the dark apparitions were allowed to slaughter as they pleased on Earth, sooner or later, the planet would be reduced to ruins. This gamble, at the very least, had temporarily saved Earth. All right, it's done. You can leave now. Wu Jiyu gestured at Wang Ting. No hurry. This vortex is quite cooling. I've decided to stay for a while, Wang Ting said nonchalantly. Wu Jiyu. Why did it seem like this brat was even more shameless than him? Hey, Black Incubus Devil Lord, it's been a long time. How have you been? Wang Ting ignored Wu Jiyu and shouted at the vortex. There was a moment of silence before Black Incubus spoke. Wang Ting, don't count your eggs before they've hatched. Once this bet is over, it will be time for your death. Your friends and family will die in front of your eyes, one by one. That should be interesting. Wang Teng replied with a laugh. Behind the vortex, Black Incubus Devil Lord took a deep breath. Chapter 8:11. What could Wang Teng do? He was helpless too. There was a chaotic region behind the vortex. Space tumbled, and an enormous dimensional rift was formed. 3 figures sat cross-legged around the dimensional rift. Black light twinkled around them, releasing powerful fluctuations into the air gradually to support the dimensional rift. One of these figures was a beautiful lady wearing a black feather overcoat. She had dark purple curly hair, and her eyes gave off a pitch-black, evil glint. This was Black Incubus Devil Lord who had some relationship with Wang Teng in the past. She pulled a long face when she heard Wang Ting's laughter. The other two devil lords were surprised at her reaction. Black Incubus, do you have some grudges with this human? The dark apparition devil lord called Phantasma was shrouded in mist, so his figure could only be seen faintly. Only his dark green eyes were visible. His gaze landed directly on Black Incubus' face. Ha ha ha, I heard that you suffered in the hands of a human the last time. Was it this one? The other devil lord called Amalgadon was extremely weird-looking. It stared at Black Incubus contemptuously and started sniggering. Phantasma's gaze shimmered. He seemed a little surprised. Amalgadon, shut your trap. Black Incubus scoffed. She closed her eyes and decided to keep quiet. No one knew how frustrated she felt currently. Some time ago, Wang Ting was just a nobody who hadn't even reached the general stage. Although he had managed to injure her with the help of external power, she felt that it was because she had underestimated her opponent. If given another chance, she would definitely be able to kill him easily. However, things didn't go as planned. She couldn't find Wang Ting in time after he dropped into the Darkland and even gave him the chance to ransack a sacred city before escaping back to Earth. She lost to Wang Ting again. This time, she volunteered to come here because she wanted to take revenge for that arrow by killing Wang Ting. But what on earth happened? That bastard Wang Ting came up from behind and advanced to the planetary stage. He was at the same level as her. How was she supposed to take revenge? She couldn't gain any advantage before he hit the planetary stage, much less now. Black Incubus was so exasperated that she wanted to vomit blood. She decided to close her eyes and rest, ignoring Wang Ting. Based on how shameless this brat was, he would definitely anger her to death. Phantasma's dark green eyes submerged back into the mist. He didn't make any more movements. Amalgadon chuckled and stopped sprinkling salt on Black Incubus' wound. It wouldn't do him any good if that lady went crazy. There was a moment of silence. The space fluctuations in the mountains got more and more violent, and the dimensional rift started expanding at an extremely fast speed. Dark fog covered everything behind the dimensional rift. The wind blew past, revealing the countless dark apparitions packed like sardines behind the black mist. Wu Jiyu sat cross-legged in the air below the vortex and glared at Wang Ting opposite him. Both of them were locked in a staring contest. "Aren't you leaving?" Wu Jiyu said angrily. "No," Wang Ting replied calmly. "Come, let's fight again." Wu Jiyu stood up and pulled the invisible sleeve on his arm. He looked as if he wanted to have another duel with him. "No." Wang Ting's expression remained composed. He changed his position and lay down in midair with one leg crossed over the other. The guy couldn't look more relaxed. At the same time, he released his spiritual power and picked up all the attribute bubbles around him. He had been here for around 3 hours and gained more than 3,000 points of space attributes. He was delighted with his gains. Wang Ting didn't want to leave because there were many attribute bubbles here. Wu Jiyu couldn't do anything to him anyway. After he raised his space physique, he would be able to increase the power of his space tornado and deal with those dark apparitions. No matter how many opponents there were, one ultimate move was enough. Wang Ting came up with a good plan. Wu Jiyu didn't know anything about it. He thought that Wang Ting stayed behind to irritate them. Wang Ting disregarded Wu Jiyu and closed his eyes. He focused on his attributes panel. He had gained many attribute bubbles when he killed the Netherworld giant python, but he didn't have the time to count them yet. He was swallowing dates whole. He didn't know what it tasted like. Since he was free now, he pulled out his board to take a look. Constellation Force, Ice, * 3500 Constellation Force, Dark, * 3650 Emperor Level Ice Talent * 150 Nether Frost * 260 Imperial Realm Spirit * 115 Blank Attribute * 12600. Wang Ting was elated when he finished looking through his gains. Good riddance, the harvest was not bad. As expected of an Emperor Level Star Beast. The attribute bubbles were huge, and there were many good items. First, there was the Ice and Dark Constellation Force. There were more than 3,000 points for both. Mind you, none of these two forces had reached the planetary stage. Gaining so many constellation force attributes was a surprise for him. He could release these two forces with some planetary stage power now. Then, there was the Emperor-level ice talent. This was a higher level than the ultimate stage talent. Emperor level. The Netherworld giant python was a race with extremely high ice talent. That was why all the adults in their race could reach the Emperor level. They relied heavily on this Emperor level talent. Wang Teng's ice talent was at the ultimate stage, and it had now been upgraded to the Emperor level. There were 150 points of it. This was a huge leap in his ice talent. The Emperor-level ice talent was higher than his ice cocoon physique. However, the combination of these two would give greater benefits. Emperor-level ice talent, 150-10,000. Wang Teng smiled. He looked at another attribute, Nether Frost. This was a special skill. Wang Teng remembered the black ice the python had released. That was a fierce attack made with extreme frost. Normal martial warriors wouldn't be able to resist it. He could only curb it because he possessed the emerald glazed flame. No matter what, this nether frost was a powerful battle technique. Finally, he gained 115 points of the Imperial Realm Spirit. Wang Teng's spirit was extremely close to breaking through to the next level. With an additional 115 points, his spirit attribute came close to the bottleneck. Spirit, 2985 3000, Imperial Realm, 15 points left. Wang Teng's face turned black. Was he someone that needed 15 more points? Yes. He only needed 15 points of spirit to advance. Wang Teng didn't know what was after the Imperial Realm. However, it would definitely make his spiritual power stronger. Torturing dark apparitions would be a piece of cake for him at that time. But, he lacked 15 points of attributes. What could he do? He was helpless too. Wang Ting shook his head and sighed. He looked at the last attribute bubble that gave him 12,600 blank attributes. The Netherworld giant python is indeed an Emperor-level star beast. Wang Teng exclaimed in his heart again. Chapter 8:12, A Different Side of Commander Hong Sai. That brat is finally willing to leave. Wu Jiyu looked at the figure flying away and gave a long sigh. When he couldn't see that figure anymore, he placed his hands behind his back. The ghost flames in his eyes flickered a few times, becoming darker. Why did he seem a little happy when he left? Wu Jiyu felt puzzled when he thought about this. He shook his head and said, "This fellow is a little strange. Did I shoot myself in the foot by making a bet with him? Phut, how can I lose?" Wang Teng left the snow mountain where the dimensional rift was. He crossed over Beijiang and headed straight for capital Xia. He left because he had already collected many space attributes. Space Physique, 25800100000, first rank, he had picked up more than 10,000 points of space attribute this time. This was a huge number. His space physique rose tremendously. The dimensional rift was huge, that was why it had dropped so many attribute bubbles. The only regret was Wang Ting had to leave even though the dimensional rift was still expanding. If not, he could collect even more attributes. What a pity. Capital Xia. The leader of martial arts, the three great commanders, and some other people were gathered in the imperial palace. Zhu Xuanwu had returned to capital Xia and was standing in front of everyone. A huge map of country Xia was displayed in front of everyone through a projector. A patch of dark clouds had started to spread out from the top of the map where Beijiang was. It had covered a large area and was moving towards the other area of Beijiang at a fast speed. Everyone's expression turned grim. "Sigh, this is a troubled era." Commander Yong sighed. No one spoke. A tense atmosphere filled up the entire room. First, there was the Star Beast invasion, then the dark apparitions. Everyone sunk into negative thoughts. Was there a way for the humans to survive? The leader opened his mouth. "Xuanwu, you said that Wang Teng remained there and didn't come back." "Yes, he asked me to return to inform everyone, but he stayed behind." Zhu Xuanwu was filled with sorrow. He nodded his head solemnly and continued, "I'm afraid Wang Teng, I don't think so." Commander Hong frowned. Based on his personality and ability, He won't put himself in danger. I believe that he has a way to escape. I believe him too. Wang Teng won't die so easily. The leader of martial arts smiled and nodded. Zhu Xuanwu was surprised. He didn't expect the commanders and the leader to have so much confidence in Wang Teng. How could he survive in that situation? All right, let's discuss how we should deal with the dark apparitions. Since Wang Teng asked you to bring this piece of news back, we need to make preparations and not disappoint him, the leader waved his hands and said. The others started a heated discussion. There were many generals who specialized in battle formations, so they gave their suggestions and made arrangements for the troops. This discussion lasted for more than an hour. When everyone was prepared to leave, Commander Yong suddenly asked, I wonder if we can ask those two people to act. Those two? The leader's eyes flickered. He obviously knew who Commander Yong was referring to. It's hard to say. If Wang Teng was around, it wouldn't be a problem. But he isn't. The leader of martial arts hesitated. Even though he had trailed off, everyone knew what he meant. Two planetary stage martial warriors. It would be a pity if they couldn't use them. The main issue was still Wang Teng. If he came back, everything could be solved easily, and they wouldn't be in such a difficult position. Everyone sighed uncontrollably. Why are you all sighing? A burst of soft laughter suddenly interrupted them. Everyone was elated when they heard the familiar voice. Wang Ting. They turned and saw a figure strolling in. Although this was a special time, the imperial palace still wasn't a place where everyone could come. Except for Wang Ting, who else could enter so easily? Ha ha ha, Wang Ting, I know that you wouldn't die. Commander Hong came forward to welcome him. Oh, you thought that I was dead? Wang Ting asked angrily. Cough, that was what Zhu Xuanwu said. He said that there were countless dark apparitions and many devil lords, so you would never be able to make it back alive. Commander Hong laughed and pushed Zhu Xuanwu out mercilessly. Fart. Zhu Xuanwu's face turned black. He didn't expect Commander Hong to be so evil. He was framing him. This was slander. How ruthless. He saw a different side of Commander Hong today. No, it wasn't me. That wasn't what I meant. Zhu Xuanwu felt wronged. He shook his head and denied it fervently. When did he ever say that Wang Teng wouldn't come back alive? He just mentioned that the chances were extremely small. Having a small chance was still a chance. If he knew Wang Teng was so tough, he wouldn't have said anything. He had wasted his sorrow. All right. Look at how frightened you are. Wang Teng waved his hand. You should have more faith in me. How can a few dark apparitions stop me? That's right, you're right. It's just a few dark apparitions. They won't be able to hold you back. Zhu Xuanwu nodded his head firmly. Everyone. Wang Teng felt speechless. I never knew that you were quite shameless too. Zhu Xuanwu smiled in embarrassment. He realized that he went a little overboard. He was given a scare when he saw Wang Teng arriving suddenly. He wasn't afraid of what Wang Teng would do to him. He was just scared that he would remember him. Getting remembered by someone as evil as Wang Teng wasn't a good thing. You wouldn't be able to sleep properly at night. All right, stop wasting time, and let's talk business. The leader shook his head with a smile and said, Wang Teng, how's the situation? Not good. The dark apparitions are going to launch a huge invasion. From the size of the dimensional rift, there must be at least a few million dark apparitions and numerous devil lords. Wang Ting shook his head with a grave expression. Everyone gasped involuntarily. A few million dark apparitions. Numerous devil lords. This magnitude was a little frightening. Where was the humans' hope? Everyone went silent. They were still discussing a moment ago, but the stimulation was too great. They lost all desire to resist. But we do have a chance. I made a bet with the dark apparitions. We will choose a battlefield to have a duel. The winner will be the king, and the loser will submit to the winner, Wang Ting said hurriedly. He saw everyone's dejected expression, so he decided not to hide the truth any longer. Bet. Everyone was astounded when they heard this. Chapter 8:13, Central continent. 1. Everyone was attracted by his words. A bet with the dark apparitions? Only Wang Ting could come up with such a bold idea. If he didn't say it, no one would have thought of this method. Also, would the dark apparitions agree? Everyone found it unbelievable. Even the leader of martial arts frowned. He was filled with astonishment. They didn't know that Wang Ting wasn't the one who came up with this gamble. There was another happy-go-lucky fellow among the dark apparitions who suggested this idea voluntarily. Wang Ting just went with the flow. You can do that. Commander Hong hesitated before asking. Do you have a better way? Wang Ting found a chair and sat down. He randomly picked up a piece of pastry and ate it light-heartedly as if he wasn't worried at all. This is a good idea. The leader's gaze turned sharp. He nodded in deep thought and continued, the dark apparitions won't attack us suddenly, and we will have room to breathe. That's right. That was what I thought. Wang Ting nodded. If we can't solve it, other people will only make unnecessary sacrifices by participating in the battle. It will be useless. However, if we can solve the issue, they won't have to die. However, the people here are not the dark apparitions' match either, Commander Yong lamented. Including the other 2 martial warriors, we have 3 planetary stage martial warriors on our side. How many devil lords does our opponent have? The leader asked. I saw 4 dark apparitions at the devil lord level, Wang Teng replied calmly. 4. Everyone took a deep breath. They started to get more hopeful. The difference was only 1, they still had some chances. That's on the surface. Who knows if there are other devil lords hiding behind? Wang Teng continued. Silence. Everyone's expression froze. They looked at Wang Teng bitterly. He shattered their hope a second after he bestowed it to them. He must have done it on purpose. Of course, there's a way out. Wang Teng chuckled. Tell us quickly. They were like ants on a hot pan. They almost couldn't control their anger towards Wang Ting. Why couldn't he say everything at once? Why did he have to make them ride an emotional roller coaster? Would he be responsible if they had a heart attack? We are not the only planetary stage martial warriors on Earth. Since the dark apparitions are determined to destroy this planet, no one can stay out of this matter. There seemed to be another meaning behind Wang Ting's words as he spoke with an evil smile. You mean? The leader's expression changed slightly. The other people weren't stupid either. They understood who Wang Ting was referring to. Their gazes flickered, and they put on a sinister smile. Their expression was exactly the same as Wang Ting's. That's right, them. Wang Ting nodded. He touched his chin and asked, what's the situation like in the other continents? The Eiffel continent, North Sea continent, South Sea continent, and Central continent have suffered the most from the Star Beast raids, especially the center of the Central continent. This area is completely cut off from the other mainlands and contains the largest primary forest in the world. Before force dawned on Earth, it had the greatest biodiversity. Naturally, it has the largest number of star beasts with terrifying and unpredictable abilities. The Central continent is heavily affected by the beast tide. The leader of martial arts paused before continuing. As for the North Sea continent and the South Sea continent, the alien invaders there are more powerful, so they managed to suppress the star beasts quickly. But dimensional rifts linking to the Darkland have appeared in these 2 continents. We detected large amounts of dark force in there. Dimensional rifts have appeared in the North Sea continent and the South Sea continent. Wang Teng was surprised. That's right. After Xuanwu came back with the piece of news, I asked my men to pay close attention to the world situation. Actually, before this, we had already noticed the abnormality in these 2 continents. That was how we locked down these 2-dimensional rifts rapidly, the leader of martial arts explained. Are there other dimensional rifts linking to the Darkland in the other continents? Wang Ting asked grimly. We didn't discover any unusual movements in the other 3 continents. There are many countries in the Aroba continent. The factions there are complicated, so it's harder to get information from there. Few people tread the North and South poles, which makes it hard for us to detect anything. On the other hand, the Eiffel continent seems peaceful. I haven't heard of any dimensional rifts appearing there. The leader shook his head. That means that there must be other devil lords in the North Sea continent and the South Sea continent. Wang Tung frowned and snorted. Wu Jiyu came up with a good plan. The other devil lords didn't sign the spiritual contract, so this duel is only limited to our land. In that case, the leader hesitated. Thinking about it, the other alien invaders might be busy with their own affairs, so they wouldn't have the time to care about their duel. No. Wang Tung smiled and shook his head. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. In fact, they will be excited to participate in this duel. The alien invaders might be powerful, but they won't be 100% confident that they can defeat the dark apparitions. If the dark apparitions invaded Earth and destroyed this planet, they will fail in their trial. 1. Chapter 8:14, Central Continent. 2. Oh. The leader of martial arts' expression changed. He mumbled, "Do we need to send out some signals?" "Of course. Spread the news of the duel. I believe they will start moving soon." Wang Tung smirked. The leader nodded. Silence. The other people were stunned. They felt that the leader and Wang Tung were like two sly foxes, one old and one young. How evil of them. Country Shia acted right away, releasing the news to the world. Country Shia was going to have a duel with the dark apparitions as a gamble. All the different countries learned of it. The various countries were controlled by the alien invaders, so this information naturally landed in their hands. North Sea Continent, White Eagle Nation. The golden-haired alien martial warrior's eyes were moving back and forth. You could tell that his mind was in a whirl. He glanced at the martial warriors below him and asked, "Is this information reliable?" "It came from Country Shia. I've sent many people to confirm it. It's from the Imperial Palace, so it's highly reliable." A martial warrior half-kneeled on the ground and replied respectfully. "Country Shia." The golden-haired young man's eyes shone brightly. A smile appeared at the edge of his lips. Looks like it's true. However, Country Shia is playing a great game of chess. Have you heard which candidate is situated there? I heard that it's a blue-haired young man. Based on my judgment, he should be from the Lan family. However, he seems to have been defeated by a martial warrior from Earth. The alien martial warrior contemplated for a second before he finished the sentence. Defeated by a martial warrior from Earth. The golden-haired young man squinted. His interest was piqued. So this martial warrior from Earth is the one who seized the areas around Country Shia? Most likely, the alien martial warrior replied. Great, this is getting more and more interesting. I didn't think such a character would appear on Earth. The golden-haired young man smiled. Have you figured out who this person is? It's most likely a talent from Country Shia called Wang Tung. The alien martial warrior tapped his wristwatch lightly. A hologram appeared in the middle of the room. It was the figure of a black-haired young man who seemed younger than 20. His face was angular and exceptionally handsome, and his aura was extraordinary. This was none other than Wang Tung. This person does have some talent. The alien martial warrior immediately listed out Wang Tung's deeds one by one. It wasn't hard for them to investigate his past achievements. However, they didn't know much about what had happened after he advanced to the planetary stage. They didn't know his current strength either. The alien martial warriors didn't think much about it. They even felt that Wang Tung's achievements were mediocre. Based on what you said, Wang Tung is indeed a talent. The golden-haired young man smiled gently as he praised Wang Tung, but his tone sounded as if he was just speaking about a normal martial warrior. He didn't place much importance on him. He can't be compared with young master, the martial warriors below replied. Earth is just an underdeveloped planet. It's not easy to have a planetary stage martial warrior here. We mustn't ask too much from him, the golden-haired young man said. Suddenly, he turned and looked to the left of the hall. Another bunch of people was standing there. They were a different group from the alien martial warriors. These were the ex-bosses of the White Eagle Nation. After the alien invaders conquered and took over the White Eagle Nation, they chose to bow down to the aliens and were now the golden-haired young man's subordinates. Do you have anything to say about Wang Tung? The golden-haired young man asked. Yoke, Shuan, Fortes, you interacted with him during the Global Exchange Conference. Tell him your thoughts. General Cromwell looked toward the people at the end. Shuan. Yoke nudged Shuan, who was standing at the side silently. Has an unparalleled talent. Shuan didn't speak much. After saying his piece, he retreated to the back and resumed his silence. Yoke, Fortes, and the others were shocked. Shuan was too insensible. How could he call Wang Ting an unparalleled talent in front of these powerful alien martial warriors? He should learn to be flexible. The people from the White Eagle Nation were worried. They were afraid of offending the golden-haired young man. An unparalleled talent. The alien martial warrior's expression turned strange when he heard these 3 words. Then, he started chuckling. There was a hint of contempt in his laughter. Cough, he can be considered an unparalleled talent on your planet. The golden-haired young man didn't embarrass him. He just smirked. You're right, Wang Ting is a talent from Earth. To you, He's merely a martial warrior from the outskirts. Has nothing in front of you. Yoke kneeled down hurriedly as he curried favor with the golden-haired young man. All right, you don't have to fawn upon me. The golden-haired young man waved his hand and stood up from his seat. Since he sent out the word that Hez having a duel with the dark apparitions, he wants us to participate. Let me fulfill his wish. Send my words out. Humans are scarce in the central continent. It's a perfect ground for a duel. I'll be waiting for him there. Let's head to the central continent. Yes. The martial warriors below bowed and replied in unison. The alien martial warriors from the North Sea continent were the first to head to the central continent. The information he asked his men to send spread throughout Earth. The South Sea continent was the closest to the North Sea continent. Hence, the candidate controlling the South Sea continent received this news first. This was a muscular young man who looked rough and lofty. He was more than 3 meters tall, and there were 2 fangs protruding from his mouth. He was a human, but it was hard to tell which race from the universe he was from. He held a large battle axe in his hand with blood dripping down from it. There was a gigantic star beast lying below the axe. It was killed recently. The muscular young man was half naked. A blood-red symbol of a hideous mutated beast was carved on his body. There was a red rune on its face. The crimson mutated beast and the rune were sparkling and giving off a red glow. It seemed devilish. The blood in the star beast below got lesser and lesser as time went by. Soon, everything disappeared, and the star beast dried up instantly. The bulky young man stepped down from the star beast and said to the alien martial warriors around him, "Come, let's join in the fun at the central continent." The ground below him exploded, leaving a deep, huge hole. Cracks formed around it like a spiderweb. The young man had already shot into the sky like a cannonball. All the martial warriors behind him were muscular and lofty too. They were from the same race as the young man. Laughing loudly, they dashed into the sky, following the young man. Country star, Mount Saint. Interesting, interesting. The green-haired young lady suddenly laughed sweetly. She seemed extremely interested. After laughing for some time, she turned to Alaise behind her and smiled. "My lovely sister, why don't I bring you to your Wang Ting? You have been thinking about him all this time, right?" "You can go if you want," Alaise replied indifferently without any change in her expression. "Oh my, you're so boring. My plan will be disrupted if I do that." The green-haired lady seemed a little frustrated. "But I need to pay a visit due to the appearance of the dark apparitions. Come with me. I want to meet Wang Ting personally and see what kind of person he is." The green-haired lady flew towards a Universe spacecraft in the sky. This Universe spacecraft was exquisite. It had a sleek body, and it was light pink in color. Comparing it to the other spacecraft, one could tell that this was owned by a young lady. Alaise stood on the ground and hesitated for a moment. In the end, she gritted her teeth and followed the young lady into the spacecraft. Very soon, the spacecraft flew towards the central continent. At the same time, the other alien candidates scattered across Earth chose to move when they received this piece of news. All of them headed towards the central continent. In an instant, All the powerful martial warriors on this planet gathered in one area. Chapter 8:15. You will get whacked to death because of your cheekiness. 1. Central continent. A lonely patch of land floated in the ocean, surrounded by islands of many different sizes. This place was underpopulated by humans, but it was a heaven for star beasts. It had a tropical-subtropical climate, and massive areas of the mainland were covered with tropical rainforests. Before the martial arts era, this area was rich in plant biodiversity. The trees were luxuriant, and you could find many species here. After Force entered Earth, the plants started growing like crazy. Trees pillared right into the sky. There were countless trees close to 100 meters tall and some higher than 100 meters. Thick vines hung above the ground like giant pythons. This place had already turned into a primary forest. There were many unknown star beasts hidden here, high in both quantity and variety. Because of the large quantity, many Lord-level star beasts were born. They were extremely powerful, and all of them were overlords of their areas. Also, there were unimaginable star beasts hiding in the lakes or below the ground. These were popular resting areas for star beasts, even regarded as forbidden zones. Normal martial warriors might end up walking into the den of a star beast if they entered this area. The chance of surviving was slim. Even general-stage martial warriors didn't dare to enter this place recklessly. Fortunately, in the past, the star beasts and the humans maintained a delicate balance, so there were never any large-scale beast tides. In addition, the central continent was situated in the middle of the ocean, isolated from the rest of the mainland. It wasn't as terrifying as it was now. Of course, this region was dangerous, but it was a heaven for martial warriors too. Star beasts, spiritual herbs, and even rare metal ores could be found here. These were all valuable goods. Seeking wealth in risk. Many martial warriors chose to form small teams and enter this continent. They would fight with star beasts, take their star cores and star bones, and find spiritual herbs. Besides the Xingwu continent, the human martial warriors also visited such primary forests or the depth of the mountains. Recently, a piece of news spread around the world. The martial warriors hunting for star beasts in the central continent retreated out of the area one after another. No one dared to stay any longer. Alien invaders, dark apparitions. News after news ignited commotions in the world. People in every country felt uneasy and anxious. Everyone was aware of the presence of the alien invaders. All the martial warriors also knew that the alien invaders exceeded the 13-star general stage and had greater combat power. Yet, these alien invaders wanted to have a decisive battle with the dark apparition on the central continent. This was a catastrophe. What was the ability of these planetary stage martial warriors? Earth-human martial warriors didn't know, but they knew how strong the general stage martial warriors were. It was easy to imagine the prowess of the planetary stage martial warriors from that. The central continent was the battlefield. There would definitely be immense impact waves. Who dared to stay there? Before the human martial warriors came, the central continent remained peaceful. Everything was normal. Roar. Occasionally, you could hear beasts roaring in the quiet primary forest or flying in the sky above to display their status as the overlords of their territory. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A loud explosion came from the primary forest below. Boom. Two large figures appeared in a part of this forest. It was a giant python and an enormous ape. Both of them were more than 100 feet tall and gave off a terrifying aura. They were both at the Lord level. They were fighting with each other and wreaking havoc in the forest. Trees fell by the hundreds, sparking an earthquake. The small and weak star beasts around them escaped in a flurry. They were afraid of getting implicated. Just when these two Lord-level star beasts were getting immersed in their battle, a shadow appeared on the horizon. Traveling at a fast speed, it was a gigantic spacecraft. The spacecraft didn't do anything after it got close to the forest. It just hovered over the woods. However, the two Lord-level star beasts stopped their battle unconsciously and raised their heads stiffly as they looked at the large spacecraft in the air. Before they could think further, another black dot appeared on the horizon in another direction. The black dot arrived above the forest in a split second. It was another huge spacecraft. After noticing the other spacecraft, it didn't get closer, stopping some distance away. The people in the spacecraft didn't appear. They seemed to be waiting for something, as if they had a plan. The two Lord-level star beasts glanced at each other and felt a chill shooting up their spines. They lowered their bodies in unplanned unison and hid among the tall trees and plants as they crawled away slowly, not daring to make a peep. They were afraid that the two spacecraft above them would notice them. But they were thinking too much. The people in the two spacecraft didn't have the time to care about Lord-level star beasts. As time went by, more spacecraft started arriving on the central continent. 1, 2, 3, 4. The entire central continent was shrouded in a tense atmosphere. All the Lord-level star beasts detected the unusual vibe and moved out. They wanted to get more information but didn't know where to start. All the star beasts panicked. They were exceptionally frustrated. However, they didn't dare to touch the people in the spacecraft. The aura exuding from them made the star beasts tremble in fear. An agonizing day passed as everyone waited in anxiety. More and more universe spacecraft came. The next morning, there were already 18 spacecraft hanging above the sky of the central continent. This meant that there were 18 alien candidates present. Chapter 8:16. You will get whacked to death because of your cheekiness. 2. Dawn arrived. The candidates were starting to lose their patience after waiting for an entire night. Just then, a person appeared on the top of a spacecraft. A powerful aura erupted from his body. Boom! The formidable aura of a planetary stage martial warrior swept through the forest. The numerous star beasts below were terrified. They lay on the ground and shivered in fear. This is so scary. Too scary. When did such a powerful presence appear among the humans? All the star beasts started sobbing and trembling. Some weaker ones even peed on the ground. You couldn't blame them. Planetary stage martial warriors were indeed scary. Star beasts who hadn't reached the Lord level could never resist them. At the same time, the planetary stage martial warriors in the other spacecraft were alerted and flew out. They released their aura simultaneously, unwilling to back down. Boom! 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 The sky above the forest turned into a restricted battleground for the planetary stage martial warriors. Petrifying forces intertwined and collided in the air, creating a ringing sound. These alien candidates glared at one another. There was an obvious rivalry between them, so the atmosphere was heated when they gathered together. The only reason why they didn't fight was because of the upcoming duel with the dark apparitions. However, some spacecraft remained silent. They didn't care about what was happening outside. Time passed again. Another half a day passed. No other spaceships arrived. The golden-haired young man from the White Eagle Nation finally walked out of his spacecraft. He possessed a powerful force of presence and attracted everyone's attention like a huge magnet. It's him, Argus. Hes recognized as the youth below 30 with the greatest potential from the Olant Federation's Blue Wolf Galaxy. Why is he participating in this trial? There are rumors that he left the Olant Federation and went out to gain more experience. Damn it, with him around, we won't have many chances. Argus remained calm after hearing everyone's words. However, the arrogance in his eyes couldn't be concealed. There were 7 large galaxies in the Olant Federation. The Blue Wolf Galaxy was one of them, and he was the most powerful talent in this galaxy. He didn't give himself this title. It was bestowed by the public. He had the right to be proud. Why isn't Wang Teng here yet? Argus glanced around him and frowned slightly. His emotionless voice resounded in the forest. No one answered him. Although the other candidates were afraid of him, they wouldn't curry favor with him. They had their pride as candidates. Ha ha ha, Argus, aren't you embarrassed? No one's replying to you. Someone laughed in a rough and loud voice. Kathu. The golden-haired young man's eyes shimmered. He turned his head and looked over with a slightly grim expression. A bulky and muscular figure had appeared on a similarly rough-looking spacecraft. There was a blood-red symbol of a mutated beast on his chest. It looked ferocious and ruthless. Kathu. Damn it, it's Kathu, the talent from Crimson Moon Galaxy, another gifted martial warrior of the universe. Our chances are getting slimmer. I heard that the symbol on his body is carved using the famous Blood Moon beast on the Crimson Moon Galaxy. What's more, they used the blood of adult giant beasts that are at the peak of the 9th level planetary stage. They were killed personally by Kathu. I heard that Hez at the 5th level of the planetary stage, but he possesses 9th level planetary stage combat prowess. It's scary. The alien candidates started discussing among themselves again. They didn't look good. They seemed frightened of this Kathu. Argus, I didn't know that you're participating in this trial. Kathu chuckled. Same. Argus' expression became normal. He refuted calmly. Looks like we might become classmates. Kathu laughed as he replied. He might be arrogant, but he didn't dare to underestimate Argus' ability. Argus snorted and kept quiet. Ha ha ha, you'll seem to be having a good time. How can you bicker at a time like this? Two ladies appeared from the pink spacecraft at the side. The green-haired lady standing in front covered her mouth and laughed sweetly. Emerald Abyss Galaxy, Biluo. Argus and Kathu were surprised when they saw the green-haired lady. You're here too. The Saint Star Pagoda is indeed a huge temptation. No one can resist it. Of course. The Saint Star Pagoda is the #1 academy in the Olant Federation. I have to view it with great importance, Biluo smiled and replied. 3 of the talented stars from the 7 major stars have arrived. I wonder if there are any others. Kathu crossed his arms in front of his chest and glanced around him with interest. Include me. A voice was heard. A man with long brown hair flew out of his spacecraft. He looked like a human except his ears were slightly sharp. He was exceptionally handsome. Pull in. The 3 martial warriors recognized this man immediately. They turned serious. Haha, since everyone is here, I shall not hide anymore. Peals of laughter resounded in the air. A short and small human appeared in front of everyone. Compared to the other alien candidates, this human was a dwarf. He was strange-looking. He had pitch-black scales on his face, but they were tiny and only grew on near his neck, making them not so obvious. Loggins. One the genius of the Black Scale tribe from the Uush Galaxy. Loggins. The #1 talent and beauty of the Emerald Abyss Galaxy. Biluo. And the ultimate talent of the Wood Fairy race from Silver Blue Galaxy. Pull-in. Cries of astonishment spurted out from the mouths of the alien candidates around them. There was a huge commotion. These alien candidates were extremely familiar with these 3 youngsters and recognized them instantly. They even knew their achievements and deeds like the back of their hands. As they spoke, they revealed the background of these 3. The 5 great stars. This trial will be a fierce and intense one. I wonder who will win and enter the Saint Star Pagoda. Though they are powerful, we still have a chance. We should fight for it no matter what. That's right. The appearance of the dark apparitions is unexpected. No one knows the result. The atmosphere above the primary forest was extremely tense after the arrival of the 5 great stars. Some distance away, 3 sneaker-looking figures hid behind layers of space obstacles and paid close attention to the situation on this side. I didn't expect so many formidable warriors to come, the octopus monster exclaimed. Boss, should we reveal ourselves? We have heard enough, the other fatty figure asked. These talents are so impatient. They got irritated after waiting for just a day. The last person touched his chin and shook his head. He expected better from them. These 3 people were Wang Teng, Jin Yuan, and Haddock. They had arrived a long time ago, but Wang Ting wanted to confirm everyone's identity, so he hid and observed them in the dark. He used his special space physique to hide the 3 of them in a space pocket, spying on the ability and reactions of these alien candidates. The gains were not bad. At least he had a good gauge of their abilities and identities. He also asked his 2 subordinates for more information to be on the safe side. When Jin Yuan and Haddock heard his words, they felt speechless and contemptuous. Their new boss was seriously shameless. He ignored those people for a day and was still complaining about them. "You'll get whacked to death because of your cheekiness," they silently complained in their hearts. "All right, it's time for us to appear." Wang Ting tidied his clothes and disappeared. A second later, he made an abrupt appearance in front of all the alien candidates and waved his hands innocently. "Hello, everyone's here." Chapter 8:17. Your subordinate's mouth is too filthy. Let me send him back for reformation. Hello, everyone's here. Just as when everyone's eyes were fixed on Argus and the other geniuses from Olent Federation, a peal of laughter broke their concentration. The voice appeared out of the blue. Even the group of planetary stage martial warriors didn't notice it beforehand. The alien candidates were all startled and turned toward the source of the sound. They saw a young man on a black crow in the sky, looking at them with a smile. Two more people appeared behind the young man, a fatty and an octopus with dozens of tentacles. This was quite an odd and peculiar combination. The expressions of the alien candidates turned grave, and no one dared to underestimate this strange group. That was because everyone knew that the fat man and the octopus were planetary stage martial warriors. And no one could see through the strength of the young man, which made him seem like an enigma. What was even more surprising was that no one noticed when the three of them had appeared. The young and golden-haired Argus had a calm expression, but there was a sharp glint in his eyes. Kathu folded his arms and grinned slightly as he looked at Wang Ting with interest. Biluo was full of smiles. She glanced at Alaise, and the smile on her face became brighter. She looked at Wang Ting with glimmering eyes. After Biluo looked away, Alaise's eyes flickered slightly. It's really him. She felt uneasy. It hadn't been that long, yet he had already come this far. It was truly unbelievable that he could compete with alien martial warriors now. Meanwhile, Loggins and Pullin were looking at Wang Ting with different expressions. No one knew what they were thinking. "Who are you?" Loggins from the Oosh galaxy asked with a dull expression. "I'm Wang Ting from Earth. Please take good care of me." Wang Ting smiled. A martial warrior from Earth. Everyone's eyes flashed, and the corners of their mouths showed a meaningful arc. That was quite an introduction. The alien martial warriors were all present there, and Wang Ting had introduced himself as an Earth martial warrior. It was like he was trying to oppose them. "Were you the one who released the news that there was going to be a duel with the dark apparitions?" Argus questioned. "That's right. It seems that you are interested in participating as well." Wang Ting pretended to be clueless and replied. Silence. Everyone was speechless. He released the news to attract them here, but he was putting on a pretense. He must think that all of them were idiots. "Do you think that you can do it alone?" Loggins said with a little contempt. "I'll only know after I fight them." Wang Ting didn't care and smiled. "But I was the one who decided on this duel. If you want to participate, you can either talk to the dark apparitions yourself or shut up." Loggins' expression changed. "How dare you!" Behind him, an alien martial warrior shouted. Wang Teng's expression remained unchanged. His gaze landed on the alien martial warrior behind Loggins, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. "Since when was it your turn to speak, planetary disciple?" Jin Yuan, who was behind, seemed to understand Wang Teng well. He glared back and shouted coldly before Wang Teng could speak. The planetary stage martial warrior's aura instantly surged towards them. In the universe, planetary disciples were martial warriors who had yet to reach the planetary stage. They couldn't do anything to the planetary stage martial warriors. The alien martial warrior's face went pale, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Loggins snorted. His powerful aura surged out, clashing against Jin Yuan's aura. Boom. Although auras weren't visible, they still made a violent roar when they clashed against each other. Jin Yuan's aura was instantly overpowered. "You have no right to teach my disciple a lesson." Loggins' face had a cold expression as his aura rushed forward. It wasn't just directed at Jin Yuan but the whole group. Jin Yuan's expression was grim as though he was facing a great enemy. As a talent from the Oosh galaxy meant that Loggins' strength had to be extraordinary. To be able to stand out in a vast galaxy, Loggins was definitely the cream of the crop. Boom. The aura came in an instant and pressed down on the heads of Wang Ting's group. Logan's sudden move was not only to protect his own people but also to test Wang Ting, the Earth martial warrior who had suddenly appeared. The alien talents didn't think too much of the martial warriors on Earth. Even if Wang Ting had reached the planetary stage, in their eyes, humans were much worse off than them. There was no point in comparing them. Wang Ting's expression remained unchanged. Just as when the aura was about to engulf them, he waved his hand gently. Bang! With a muffled sound, the overwhelming aura evaporated. There was a slight change in Logan's expression as he stared at Wang Ting. He was quite surprised. The other alien martial warriors were taken aback as well. Even Argus and the others were no exception. They all had different expressions on their faces. Jin Yuan and Haddock's hearts were filled with amazement as their eyes flashed. It hadn't been that long, and they could feel that their boss had become much stronger. The two of them exchanged glances, making sure that there wasn't anything wrong. Their hearts pumped even faster. However, Wang Ting wouldn't let it go like this. A bright light flashed in his eyes, and his spiritual power condensed into a formless sword before stabbing forward. Oh shit! Logan's expression changed slightly. He wanted to stop it, but it was too late. The sword of spiritual power was too fast. It had already pierced into the eyes of the planetary disciple. So silent. The planetary disciple's body shook. Blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. His body lost its support and tumbled backward. Bang! His body fell on the top of the spacecraft. His consciousness was gone, and he had completely lost his vitality. Logan's eyes were filled with rage. Your subordinate's mouth is too filthy. Let me send him back for reformation. You don't have to thank me. Wang Ting ignored his gaze. Bastard. Logan's was furious. He had never been ignored like this. And he had never been offended like this. This earthling had killed his most capable subordinate in front of him. It was like he was trampling on his face. There was no way he could bear with it. If you can't accept this, let's fight. I'll be your opponent. Wang Ting finally stopped smiling and looked at him emotionlessly. He only had one principle when facing enemies. If they couldn't accept it, head hit them till they could. If they still couldn't accept it, head hit them till they died. He would kill them, even if they were talents. In an instant, the surrounding atmosphere tensed up. Everyone's eyes were focused on Wang Ting and Loggins. They were either shocked, mocking, or gloating. Chapter 8:18. Born with mocking ability, the gazes of the alien candidates went back and forth between Wang Ting and Loggins. You can't tell Wang Ting's strength. He's definitely at the planetary stage. Otherwise, he couldn't have been able to withstand Loggins' aura. But that looked too easy for him. That was spiritual power, right? An attack that's hard to defend against, that's definitely spiritual power. This Wang Ting is an extremely rare divine spirit master. However, Loggins is a renowned talent of the Oosh galaxy. How can Wang Ting be compared with him? What he did just now is tantamount to courting death. Discussions echoed in the surroundings, and everyone was stunned. They all marveled at the fact that Wang Ting was a divine spirit master. There was a divine spirit master on such a backward planet. Even so, they were not optimistic about Wang Ting's chances. They felt that he couldn't match up to Loggins. Angering him was like asking for his own death. Loggins' face was ashen, and his heart was seething with rage, almost to the point where he was about to explode. However, he took a deep breath and calmed down before looking at Wang Ting silently. The crowd was disappointed. They thought that Loggins wouldn't be able to stomach this and would definitely kill Wang Ting on the spot. No one expected the end to be so anticlimactic. He didn't say a word, choosing to avoid any conflict for now. The alien candidates were not idiots and naturally knew the reason why. Their gazes swept over Argus and the others, and they couldn't help but shake their heads. With them around, Loggins wouldn't reveal his strength just because of an earthling. How boring. Wang Ting muttered when he saw that Loggins had no intention to do anything. A throbbing vein popped up on Loggins' head, and the muscles on his face twitched. Everyone was speechless. This brat just loves to stir trouble. He's literally asking for death. The phrase appeared in the crowd's mind. Everyone is here for the dark apparitions. There is no need to do anything for a trivial matter. Pullin, the talent of the wood fairy race from the silver blue galaxy, opened his mouth. A planetary disciple's life and death were just a trivial matter in their eyes. That's right. Let's talk about how we are going to deal with the dark apparitions. Wang Ting, you probably know about the trial. Although you are a martial warrior from Earth, you are eligible to participate since you have obtained the personal terminal. Olent Federation's top academy, St. Star Pagoda, will be admitting students from the participants of the trial. It is undoubtedly a great opportunity for you, Biluo, the talent from Emerald Abyss Galaxy, said with a smile. I don't really care about the trial. I'll play with you guys since I think it's fun. Wang Teng responded indifferently. Biluo's expression froze slightly. Such a great opportunity was disregarded by Wang Ting just like that. Biluo couldn't believe it. She could only say that Wang Ting was putting on an act. Wang Ting knew that it was a great opportunity for him to be able to participate in this trial to enter the St. Star Pagoda. He wasn't as casual about it as he showed. Biluo and the others all thought so and felt that Wang Ting was just bluffing. Wang Teng didn't intend to explain anything to these people and found a comfortable spot on Little White's back. He sat down with his legs crossed. Oh, I'm exhausted from running around. Since you want to talk, let's talk. Silence. The spectators were left speechless when they saw Wang Teng's passiveness. Was this guy really the talent of this entire planet? Something didn't feel right. He didn't look like one with that attitude of his. Don't just stand there. Feel free to speak if you have anything to say. Come, let's talk. Wang Teng prompted everyone as if he was the host. Silence. The corners of their eyes twitched involuntarily, and a sense of helplessness emerged in their hearts. This duel was decided by you and the dark apparitions. What are the rules? Tell us about it. Biluo took a deep breath and asked helplessly. There aren't any rules. It's just like what you've heard. There's nothing else. Wang Teng spread his hands. You decided on a duel with the dark apparitions without setting any rules? Biluo's emotions went out of control again. This brat was too infuriating. That's right. Just like that. Wang Teng nodded. You. Throbbing veins appeared on Biluo's head. It looks like there's nothing else to talk about. Let's wait for the dark apparitions to come. Argus looked at Wang Teng and shook his head. He then sat down on his spacecraft, closing his eyes. Ha ha ha, I like you. There's no need for a plan, well just fight. Kathu laughed as he looked at Wang Teng with bright eyes. I'm sorry, I don't like guys. Thank you. Biluo and the others cast strange glances at Kathu. Kathu choked suddenly as the corner of his mouth twitched. An urge to kill Wang Teng birthed inside him out of nowhere. He finally understood how helpless Loggins, Biluo, and the others felt. As long as you spoke to Wang Teng, you would definitely experience it. Wang Teng was born with the ability to mock others, and he was especially annoying. Kathu obediently closed his mouth, expressing that he didn't want to talk to him anymore. Biluo and Pullin were waiting on top of their respective spacecraft, but they were extra relaxed. They ordered their men to put out tables and chairs, even enjoying afternoon tea under their parasols. Seeing that, Wang Teng's eyes lit up slightly. He asked Little White to land on Biluo's spacecraft. Wang Teng jumped off Little White's back and smiled at Alaise, who was sitting next to Biluo. Your Highness, it's been a long time. While speaking, he took out a chair from his space ring and sat down naturally. Alaise, Sigma, everyone. Wang Teng picked up a rather delicate-looking pastry from the table and popped it in his mouth after looking at it carefully. While chewing, he said, Is this a signature pastry from your universe? Let me see how the taste compares to the ones on my planet. Has anyone ever told you that you're really shameless? Biluo was dumbfounded. Yes, quite a few actually. But I ignored them. Wang Teng thought about it and shook his head. Are you here to meet your acquaintance or for my afternoon tea? Biluo squinted. Neither. I'm actually here to get to know you, the talent and beauty of the Emerald Abyss Galaxy, Wang Teng replied shamelessly. Oh, you know me? Biluo was a little surprised. Wang Teng actually knew her name and that she was from the Emerald Abyss Galaxy. How did he learn that? It's not just you. I know all the talents that are here. Wang Ting smiled mysteriously. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.